Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. So I gave what I consider a very important voiceover at the end of the last video, talking about how time and your life force are your true currencies, right? You have a limited life force in you, your prana, your creative energy, and your time, your time on planet Earth, are your true currency, right? So when somebody hires you for a job, they're buying your time and they're buying your life's energy, your creative force, and you're putting that into whatever tasks they assign you, right? And so that's how you're getting paid. And you're trading your time and your life energy for money, which is a horrible deal for you, but it's like whatever, you know. I mean, it's what we have to do, right? It's just the way the system is set up. And I wanted to talk about manifestation of things as a part of that. And so when you manifest, when something is manifested by a person, it goes from being a thought, an idea, to words, to expressing it verbally, to a plan, which again is a mental construct. It doesn't have to be from an idea to words. It could be an idea to a plan first, depending on how it, manifests, right? Like you have an idea, and some ideas just die inside of you. They never get any expression, right? Some thoughts, it starts as a thought. And so, when people think about thoughts, thoughts become plans, plans becomes actions, words become verbalization of the plan. And so the things that your ideas that you have will be put out there verbally to other people, right, to the world. You might have an idea and you might say it to somebody and then you forget all about that idea. But that idea then maybe goes around to various people, and then somebody hears it and then formulates a plan, and then it becomes an action where they are working towards achieving that plan, and then it becomes a manifestation in our material world, right? And so everything begins at the thought process and eventually becomes something real in physical life. Somebody has an idea of an invention. They go through the process of making that invention into a working prototype, and that prototype then gets refined, and the manufacturing process becomes there's all these things it goes through, and then it ends up on after some selling of the item, it ends up in a store in Walmart and you're using it, right? It started off as somebody's idea somewhere, and then it has to go through these various processes to be manifested. And something being manifested as a product that people are using, millions of people are using, is the ultimate in something like that. An invention where somebody's, like a cell phone, for example, right? The computer chip or something like that now everybody's using. But there are things that are less influential. And this process of manifestation goes through there's spiritual points within your heart where you have thoughts in your mind, and then it goes to your heart, and it's given you where your life force is and your soul energy is. And it gets manifested through that process, right? And so when in the Bible they describe that man is made in God's image, it's not the physical body. It's your ability to do, it's your soul, your spiritual essence is what, is a reflection of God, because God doesn't look like a man. God doesn't look like a human being. God doesn't have, isn't limited to what a human being is, right? Like that's just very immature thinking, and in the terms of the Old Testament is very immature, dealing with people who are primitive and lack the ability for abstract thinking. There's always dumb people, right? Like there's just always people who don't have higher levels of consciousness, and the majority of marketing is for dumb people, right? Because the majority of people are low consciousness. I mean, if you understand these impoverished people all over the world who are underdeveloped mentally, don't have the ability for abstract thought, or malnourished, don't have proper brain, formation, and their soul is just immature. It hasn't experienced life on planet Earth, and it's limited to its, wherever it's come from. It's, from the animal kingdom or something. Its experience in the physical reality is limited, and so, there are lots of stupid people out there that can be easily manipulated, and they're basically a slave population, and they're the people that are targeted most often, right? Because picking fruit, like the people do agricultural work. Years and years ago, I worked picking tobacco. Me and these sort of semi-privileged suburban kids. It was the only job we could get. There was tobacco fields all over where I grew up in Connecticut. It was the leaf wrapper around the cigar. These, you know, the leaves of the plant was what they would wrap a cigar around, the cigar wrapper. And, we had to first do what was called suckering. There was these sucker leaves that weren't tobacco leaves. And you had to rip those leaves off and then shove dirt up around the plant, and you were on your butt, and you were just scooting down these tobacco rows. And you got paid $2.47 an hour. And then came the picking of the first leaves, and you were on your knees. And at the end of the day, your butt would hurt, and your leaves, and you had to wear a hat because the tobacco had this tar, the tar that is so dangerous to people's lungs. That was, it was just prevalent in the plants. If your hair touched one of the leaves, you'd get this resin on your hair, right? So it's like a gross plant. And you had to take the tobacco leaves and put them in these bents. The bents were like the poles that would hold up the netting that went over these plants. And eventually you were standing, and you were, going through this different process. And most of us, we didn't come in every day. We came in, some days our friends would say, let's go in tomorrow or whatever. And, we did not great work. We weren't killing ourselves, right? We were just, doing the bare minimum. Now, if you brought in more of these leaves, you would get 10 more cents for every, I don't know, whatever. And there were people there that were either, they had Puerto Rican people come in, and they had mostly people from Pennsylvania. They were called the PAs. And these were not smart people. Some of these were 25-year-old kids, and we were, I was 14. There was no one who was 16 doing this job, because you could get a real job when you were 16 or whatever if you really desperately wanted to work. And, just whatever. You could go work at a McDonald's or something, whatever. And so the kids from Pennsylvania, these, young men, were running, and they were doing 4 times the work we were doing because they wanted to get extra money. They started a base pay of $2.47, and maybe they got it up to $3-4 an hour. They were just busted, and they lived in these dorms that were brutal. And these people were not, they were very underdeveloped. Almost you'd see in Deliverance or something. People who are just really, rednecky. And then they had these people who were, basically immigrant labor, Puerto Rican people, Spanish people. And they worked in the barns mostly, where they climbed up on these barns, which is really dangerous. There was multiple, wood beams, thin wood beams. They were mostly small, the people that did the work. And they crawled, there was girls who would sew the leaves onto these slats. And they would put, thread through the leaves so they could dry the leaves, the tobacco, the leaves that they'd wrap around the wrapper leaves. And these guys had to go up probably about, 50, 60 feet to the top of this thing and hang these boards of, the whole thing was it was filled with tobacco leaves. And they'd start at the top, and then they'd come down, and The whole barn would be filled with them, and then after they dried, they have to go up and retrieve them. And it was like, man, I wouldn't do that. It was really dangerous. Like, the boards were shaking, and there weren't like solid boards that didn't move. And so, this is the kind of people that they're very underdeveloped, low consciousness. Like, we knew that, these people that were coming in were just not smart. Like, you couldn't have a conversation with them even as a 14-year-old kid, right? Their lives were completely different than ours, right? And so there's a lot of work that, cleaning up work, harvesting food, just menial tasks that is done by people who are underdeveloped. This is when I was in India, you could hire somebody to clean. We hired a girl to clean our house. We gave her $70 a month, and she came in 5 or 6 days a week and cooked a meal and would clean the house in the morning, right? And then she went and did it for somebody else. So she made, and they paid her less. Like, we were getting overcharged because we were white, we were foreigners. And so, like, she was, doing this work, and then she had her own family. She had 2 little kids. Nice lady, didn't speak English, but she was, very positive, happy person. And sometimes they wouldn't show up, and you didn't know why because there was no communication, but it really didn't matter, right? And there was people who would have 4 or 5 people working for them because you could pay them $70 a month. They had a driver and whatever it was, and just unbelievable. I mean, $70. Imagine living, well, there would be like, they do maybe, 2 different jobs. But it was nothing. They're paying these people almost nothing, right? They're the lower caste people in India. And so you could have multiple people working for you because there's so many people there. And they just want any kind of a job, right? So these people had nice houses, American style houses. And they'd have 4 or 5 people working for them. And those people would go home to these little huts, right? And so when you're talking about the people that the controllers are most concerned about, they make money off of middle management people, and they make money off of, suburban people with, jobs, Americans and things. But they're really concerned about the labor they get for almost nothing, the slave-like labor. People making cell phones in China and these, whatever it is. And that's the majority of people in the world who they target with stupidity, the level of stupidity. This is what Trump and Kamala Harris are doing right now. 2 campaigns of, which of low consciousness to stupid people. And I don't get bummed out that people don't listen to me, people don't agree with me, people have their own beliefs, because your beliefs are your beliefs. And I don't know what your life is like that you have to, what's going on inside of you, that you have to think that Trump is an answer, that you think that, voting's going to change something. Because if you take that away from people, like, I don't mind if people get upset at me and, they don't want to hear about me talk about, the corruption of the Christian religion, because they are living a miserable life, selling their time and their life energy for peanuts. And, with this idea that they've accepted Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior, they're going into heaven. And that's just, they're clinging to that, right? Like, people are clinging to this idea that Trump is going to make America great again. Like, it's just, they're not necessarily stupid people, but they're just, that shattering that image, or that, that hope is, too much for them, right? Like, they're just clinging to things. There's people who have to, self-deception that happens in people's internal world. Again, a thought becoming an action. And what people have to convince themselves of, lie to themselves about, is usually to cover up pain, right? It's like a wife who knows her husband's cheating, or a husband who knows his wife's cheating, and they just were pretending it isn't happening because they just don't have a choice, right? I mean, I had to live like that with my ex, where I had to, create false hope and, this idea that some things could get better, dealing with people, someone with mental illness, and just, because there was no other option. There are people who have no other options, and they're, you have to lie to yourself, or, you have to not explore the truth. You have to change reality, or just deny reality so that you can get by. Like, you have to give yourself false hope. And there's a lot of false hope out there because people now realize that we're completely effed, like we're completely fucked. See, politicians have always been dopey. Like there haven't been there hasn't been a good person. I mean, in my lifetime, people say, JFK, or maybe they're maybe a little bit smarter. They're more, people were smarter in terms of their, I don't know. You're going back where people would express their education and would give. I mean, there wasn't TV and the sound bites and things like this, so who knows, the level of consciousness. But in my lifetime, there's been no great president. There's been no, president that was, you would say, this guy's saving us from disaster. Like, there was no impending disaster. I mean, there's always fear, like fear of the Russians, fear of of course, with nuclear war, that became something where, all right, now the world could be destroyed. Like this is real, with the modern weapons, the weapons of mass destruction, that became a legitimate fear. But mostly fear was about famine, being able to have everything that you need, gas shortages or food shortages or, some things like that. And so, but the presidents before mostly campaigning on making things better, that life in America was going to get better and they were going to help bring it to be better. And, there was some fear, and Republicans used fear a little bit more than the Democrats did. But there wasn't any idea that the economy would collapse. So there was a big event in 2001. Then there was the economic collapse of 2008, and then these various other things that happened, more controversial issues, the things that happened in schools and the things with the pizza and these were truther things. But then there was, things like COVID and, other things like that. To the point where both candidates are talking about saving America. Like America has to be, we either move forward and evolve into the Hollywood celebrity type of morals and, the stuff that's going on with gender and things and, all the liberal stuff that they're pushing. That's progress, that we either have to go into the progress and become, better. That's some sort of evolutionary thing, which is clearly not, right? And then, Trump wanted to bring people back to the past and make America great again like it was when you grew up as kids, because, you see the world descending into this other moral decay. And neither person can do that because these politicians are worse than any we've had before. And they're saying they can prevent the world and America from collapsing and an economic system, a debt-based system. And they're not even dealing with anything that's truthful, right? And so you're kind of aware as a person now, most people are, even sheeple, that things could get really bad really quickly. And, the way things went with COVID and people going and buying up all this stuff, which I said, and all these things. And so there's a real fear of the collapse of the system. And so I don't begrudge people having to lie to themselves to cope with that, to cope with the reality that Trump can't fix things or Kamala can't fix things for the liberals or whoever it is, or the system can't be fixed, because that's just not a great place to live, where you kind of realize, hey, the system's collapsing and there's no solution. There's no hope. Like we're descending into something, we're like everything is bad and going in the wrong direction, and people are worse, and the kids growing up are depressed and lost, and it's just collapsing on every level. The family's broken down, and all of our systems are under stress. The food system and the energy system, and there's hatred between people. Families are at each other's throats. It's like the division is really bad, and it seems like we're being guided in that direction by the powers that be. That this is what needs to happen. I mean, even from a divine perspective, if you want to go to that level, but the controllers on a smaller, lesser level, bringing us down to that situation where your lifestyle and everything that you knew as American life is going to disappear, and you're going to get a new deal, and it's going to be worse. And there's, I mean, people just can't even imagine that. Like, can't, I don't know if I could cope with that. People are thinking, I don't know what I would do if that's the situation. I don't think I could make that adjustment. People thinking that they would rather die than, or they would go into a state of shock, and, they wouldn't be able to deal. Like, they wouldn't be able to deal with that reality. And I think that's, the overwhelming majority of people. So they have to give themselves false hope. And preparing for something like that, like doing anything to prepare for the collapse of the system, would be like an admission that that's a possibility, and that would freak the people the fuck out, right? So that's where most people are at. And so I don't, like I said, I don't begrudge people their coping mechanisms, because people can only do what they can do. And I'm not, And so if they don't want to listen to me, they don't want to, that's not, certainly this idea of surrendering to some divinity within you is just more than they can even handle. That the idea that God's inside of them and they can, surrender to something that's, they're still going to have to deal with all the problems of the world, but at least they have some, divine connection. It's just not a leap that they want to take. They'd rather have this idea that the people running the system are smart, and that they have everyone's best interest in heart, and they'll make sure that, and that's the way it was for years. But now all of a sudden, apocalypse is on the table, right? People are aware that the system could come down at any moment, and are, it's palpable. And so what I want to focus on this video is, I talked about my brother and my ex and people in the Sajmarg system that now are following this fraud, dodgy, and heartfulness. And, I didn't say this, but I'll say this here. This voiceover will also go in my journey series. And so what I didn't say about that was, these people who know on some level that dodgy is a failure. Like, there was 3 masters of Sajmarg system, and they were all just impeccable in they were just, spiritual masters, or people who had mastered themselves, and they'd reached that goal of the full expression of a realized, person that becomes a full expression of their soul. And, there's religious figures out there that people think they reached that goal, and they didn't. Like, this is, kind of a remarkable thing that happened. And then the 4th guy, Dodgy, is just a dope. He's he's just really stupid and corrupt. Like, he's like the worst combination of incompetence, stupidity, and corruption. And he's destroyed the system, this meditative system that, was so important to many of us. There's probably about 5,000 or 10,000 people that did this system, and it was just, everything to them, right? They would spend all their free time and, all their vacation time traveling and being, at this, either going to India or being at gatherings. And, all their time they spent meditating and reading the books and doing, all of everything. And then all of a sudden the system collapses. And not only does the guy suck, but he also threw the previous master under the bus. And it's just, criticized him and scrubbed him from the mission. And, like, these people love this guy, right? The 3rd master, Chargy. And, it's so obvious that the guy sucks. He's involved in scams, and, he's got this school program where it's called Brighter Minds, where kids can smell the colors on a Rubik's Cube and solve it with a fake blindfold where they're looking through the cracks. It's been exposed, and it's a scam in India that had been exposed years before he even got to it. And he just does one stupid thing after another, and and they're just in denial. Some of them are aware of it, but they still won't quit, or they won't, figure out some other way, because they can't cope with that. Like, this thing that happened was something that was never supposed to happen, and they can't deal with it, right? And so I see this all the time. And so if I have a, ability, it's that I can deal with things. It was painful for me to go through that. Those of you who've listened to the Journey series. But, I've been able to deal with harsh truths. I've been able to deal with reality, in its most painful form. And, I've had to deal with it in my personal life and these things, and just be able to see truth if even if it's like totally sucks. And there are times that the truth just totally sucks because it's overwhelming. I don't want to say it sucks because it's just our perception, but The truth is overwhelming. And that's what we're in a situation right now. The truth is overwhelming because of the things are much worse than we even know. Like we can't even know all the details. And, the presidential campaign right now has gotten to such a low vibrational level. And for me, the two things that Trump has done to take things to a new level. Well, let me first say this. Kamala has this system on her side. Like she has the media and the governmental view, the view of the establishment, the built-in lies and deceptions and evil. Like they're backing her, right? They're, not that the people who control the system are backing her because they like Trump. Trump is their asset. But this media, the thing I call the show, they're backing her view, her worldview. And so Trump has to, go against, the fake news, the media, all these things. But he's not doing it in a real truther way. But when he went in and did a fake shooting thing, when he did Ketchup Gate, and he did this really stupid WWE thing, he lost, what little credibility he had left. And he's perpetrating this fraud on his people and really stupid people, right? That's what he's trying to. But then he brought God into it, and he brings God into it a second time, and I'll show you that in a moment. He went to New York and, this thing. But also this thing with the Haitians eating cats. It's just low. And just, using people and abusing people and making up lies, things that are lies, and perpetrating this fraud to create fear. He's just such a low piece of shit, right? He's reached a level of being a piece of shit, in ways that you can't even contemplate. And I'll, show you these clips in a moment. And so I was doing a voiceover last night for my Journey series, and it's going to be like a standalone video on my other two backup channels that are in the apocalypse now. And, I was talking about how my ex and, my brother, dealing with them as personalities, they wouldn't acknowledge what a drag it was for me or other people to deal with their bullshit, right? And that's the problem. Like, I don't care what you believe, but when you start interacting with people, it's your suckiness and your inability to see your suckiness causes other people pain and creates problems for everybody else, right? Like your inability to see reality. Each person distorting reality for their own benefit hurts other people. And, we all do it. We all, we all have to lie to ourselves at times, it sucks. And, it's when you realize that it sucks and whatever it is, right? And we all have to do things that we don't necessarily believe in, just because the system is, warped in some way that we have to comply and we have to, knuckle under. And if we thought about it every day, it would make our lives hard and our jobs hard, whatever, right? Paying taxes and, participating in the system and, doing things that, we don't really endorse, the government taking our money and giving it, or doing things with it, wars and things that we don't want to be a part of, right? And then just the job that we do and, what we're producing out there and working for evil corporations or whatever we're doing, that our work is actually, we're contributing to making the world a worse place. And, if you had to think about that stuff constantly, you wouldn't be able to function. And so you just have to, even if you're aware of it, you just have to put it in the back burner. But going back to my brother and my ex, I'm aware of the complaints against me. I'm aware of people being upset at me. Now, the majority of negative comments are about my beliefs and people getting upset because I believe something that they don't believe. And I'm saying things that they don't agree with inside themselves. And they, whether it be about Trump or whatever. And that's just weak on their part, because and the weakness comes from they know I'm right, on some level. And it bothers them because they can't deal with what I'm saying. They can't deal with Trump faking a shooting, and they can't deal, the majority of truthers, I guess. Some guy said he watched 60 videos on the first Trump shooting, and only 3 people even hinted at the idea that Trump could be involved. When it's so obvious that he is, right? And so they're not really truthers. They're in denial because they, whatever their thing is, right? I mean, these are people who are making videos about it. And so, you know, the things that I'm saying go against things that people believe. And if they think they're going to heaven, and I say, well, John 3:16 isn't accurate, and there's just, the way that this is being, it's a manipulative action by your religion. It bothers them because they're clinging to this idea that they're like, in this miserable life they have, they're at least I'll be able to go to heaven when I die. And then someone says, well, well, really, it's, you know, well, and so, if you're clinging to this idea that Trump can save the country, then yeah, it sucks for you. And that's on you. That has nothing to do with me, right? But there are legitimate complaints that people could have about me. And I was saying how, like, I dealt with my family and, tendencies that we have and, just things that are there. And I understand why, my personality type and my, the way that I present myself and just some of the things that I have, flaws, issues, whatever they are. And I know about those things, right? It's not like there's some unknown to me. Like I understand, the character flaws that I have or whatever, the idiosyncratic behaviors, whatever the things are. And when people point them out, it's like I already know about them. It's not like I'm in denial about those things that I somehow think I'm perfect and, everything I do is justified, right? Like I always think about these things. You have to. Like if you're going to change, I mean, part of the Sizemore system is about character development and changing who you are. The flaws, the things that, getting rid of the things that don't come from a divine place, right? And whatever these things are. And so you have to constantly look at these things, not in a way that's debilitating, in a way like, yeah, I need to get rid of this thing or that thing, and bringing in something else in its place, right? And it's not easy work, and that's why people don't like to do it. Because once you become a spiritual person, the divinity within you is going to show to you the things that need to go, the things that you're doing, habits and, attitudes and things. And, in that, it's overwhelming. Like, it's a lot of the stuff. It's just too much to do at once if you're, like, it's pretty much everything in your personality you have to rework because of the way they've been indoctrinated and we've been brought into the system. And so, I'm aware of those things. But, Trump's denial, like him saying that he's being targeted by these fake shootings because the other people are saying, so many bad things about him. And then he goes out and perpetrates these lies, these false shootings and, like those things, but also things like the eating of the pets and things. And I'm going to show you these video clips again, the new ones. And so him claiming that God saved him from a fake shooting and God has nothing to do with Trump. I mean, as like Trump is not a follower of God. Trump hasn't surrendered to God. He's a lying piece of shit, and he always has been. And he's selfish. And, he's been a business failure as well. There's a new book I want to cover, which I believe it's accurate to my knowledge of what Trump is. And so, understanding that, and I'm saying this in a way because, Kamala Harris represents the dysfunctional lying system. She represents the beast. Although the beast loves Trump, the beast needs Trump more than he needs Kamala. There's a million Kamalas and there's only one Trump, right? Like they can't replace Trump. They could easily replace Kamala with any number of dopes. They could throw Gretchen Whitmer in there or, any of those other guys, Newsom or whatever. Like they have plenty of people that could do what Kamala's doing, but they only have one Trump because he is just a very significant personality type. And somebody who has people who love him and hate him. He's the ultimate divider. And, this has been the Trump-dominated era the past 8 years or so. But he sucks. He's brought everything down to a lower level, which the controllers want, right? And so Trump is the problem. Trump is what has to go. Like, and it doesn't mean if Trump loses, he's going to go necessarily. Like, I'm not sure that they'll, until just Trump is debilitated like Joe Biden. I mean, but then there's the shell of Trump. They'll keep Trump alive in one form or another until this whole movement of the collapse of our system has been worked through. Or they just don't need them anymore because everything's gotten so bad that they can implement their plan. I don't know, whatever they're going to try to do here. But here, let's get into it. Oh, I should say again, this is the shadow banning thing. Leaving comments, thumbs up is probably the best thing. Letting YouTube know if you want to see the content. There's various ways to donate as well. All the things. Like, subscribe, comment, these things. All right, let's get into the whole the video here. Okay, so let's start here. Trump went to New York because let's start here.
And I'm thrilled to be back in the state I love with thousands of proud, patriotic New Yorkers who are really the heart and soul of America. We know that.
You're saying New York is the heart and soul of America? New York that is pretty much fundamentally rejected you, right? Like he's been, all these lawsuits, all the things that New York has done to him that he's been upset about. And it's a democratic state. But he says this.
And the reason I'm here is because it hasn't been done in many decades. It hasn't been done for a long time, but we are going to win New York.
There's zero chance of that happening. So that's not the real reason. What's the real reason you're there? Because you're going to win New York. USA. Drain the swamp.
And that's the first time in many, many years that a Republican can honestly say it, and we're going to do it. We have to do it. We do it, and the election nationwide is over. We take over the White House, and we fix up our country, okay?
Yeah, I mean, that's fantasy, though. You're not winning freaking New York. Why don't you just go campaign in California, too? If you win New York and California, it's a landslide. It's not happening.
We fix up our country. So as you know, 3 days ago there was...
There's a guy in a captain's hat back here. Was this a Love Boat? So this is where I want to focus on this here, though.
As you know, 3 days ago there was yet another assassination attempt on my life. I didn't know I was going to say that.
Boo, 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 assassination, boo, boo. My dogs are looking at me. Boo, assassination attempt.
It was the second one in 8 weeks by a violent radical left mobster.
Wait, that's not what that guy was. Like, that he's called the person crazy somewhere else, which would be a more accurate description. The guy voted for you. So how could he, he voted for you in 2016. And we don't know what he voted before, but he wasn't violent mobster, right? Like,
this evil would-be assassin got within a few hundred yards of where I stood, but thankfully our outstanding Secret Service agent, and they are outstanding.
Yeah, well, come on, bro.
Spotted the barrel of his rifle in the bushes. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? He saw a barrel of a big, this was a big barrel.
Massive gun. It was like a tank. He had a tank in the woods.
This you don't want to even talk about. AK-47.
We don't even want to talk about something like that. That crazily big barrel.
But he saw the barrel coming out a little bit out of the very lush bushes, and he took fast action to stop the gunman before I even entered the line of sight. And I want to express my thanks to the U.S. Secret Service, who was there that day, and to all of the sheriffs and law enforcement down in Florida, they're heroes who helped to apprehend the attacker. And by the way, you possibly heard the story. So the secret agent, service agent, pulled out the gun and started shooting. He said, Barrel, he didn't talk like a lot of people. They talk. How are you, sir? What would you like to talk about? Would you like to talk about the weather? No, he pulled.
He saw a barrel, like, I mean, depending how close he was, right? The story just sounds fake. It's disappeared. I mean, it's run its course already.
Out the gun and he started shooting at him. And the villain. No, but think of this. This could only happen with a woman because men aren't smart enough. I hate to tell you, fellas.
So yeah, you're running against a woman. You're running against a woman.
He dropped his gun. His car was a block away, and he started running because they had him. And he was running.
Wait a minute, his car was a block away, and they couldn't catch him. It took them that long a time. They couldn't coordinate somebody to go out, and I mean, the whole thing is just suspect, right? I thought he parked on the street. So if he parked a block away, then that's a significant.
Running, and a woman driving a car innocently said, "He looks like a bad person to me."
Oh my God! So that's the story. That this woman's driving a car, some guy runs across the street, and she's like, "Oh my God, he looks like a bad person. I'm gonna go pursue him at my cost and risk of my own life," not knowing they just took a shot at Trump.
He looks very suspicious, and she followed him and pulled up to the back of the car and started taking pictures.
Look at him. That's what they're using this thing as. The Good Samaritan. Oh my God! Like, what is going on here? See something, say something. Right? This is a see something, say something bullshit thing.
License plate. Can you believe that? And she took the pictures of his license plate, perfect, beautiful pictures like a professional photographer, and sent them to the sheriff and said, "I just looked at a man. There was something strange going on."
Yeah, there's something strange going on with this story, right?
Who the hell would...
This guy would have gotten away other than that? Like, other than that, they didn't have any way to ID this guy. So he runs across the street. If it isn't for this woman, there's no record. The gun has the stuff that he's leaving behind, there's a chance they could figure out who he is from that. Like, small chance. But he didn't buy this weapon legally. And so it's not registered to him. And so he would have been gone back to Hawaii or whatever it was, right? The other thing is, if you're like the first guy who shot at Trump, these were people who weren't trained. These are not professional assassins. This was their first kill, right? And people know who have hunted deer and hunted, wherever it is. You have to, like, there's I think called deer fever. To shoot something like that and a person, you have to overcome a lot, right? That's why there's this mind control process these guys go through at boot camp. My brother was a drill sergeant at boot camp when he came back from Vietnam, and then there was a couple of my friends went through Paris Island in South Carolina, where there's just from Full Metal Jacket, if you've seen that movie. And they have to turn you into somebody who will kill somebody, right? Because you're coming in and you have your own morals and ethics, and it's hard to kill somebody. Like, it's just, there's just something inside of you that doesn't want to do that. I mean, there's people who are sociopaths and whatever. It's just not easy to kill things and kill people. People don't want to kill animals and, killing a person. But let's say you really want to kill somebody like Trump. If you're going to, where the first shooter was, I talked about this. Every shot that he missed was going to hit a person, right? Like, you have to look at the trajectory of your bullets, and you have to look behind you, behind where you're shooting at, and see that there's innocent bystanders. I talked about this in my last video. You see all these cop chases where, innocent people like these muggles or extras are just getting run over. The loss of life in these, they made it a part of the Marvel Avengers movies because these superheroes would have these battles with the supervillains, and thousands of people were getting killed and displaced in these cities. They were having these horrific battles, and everywhere they went, there was casualties from the superheroes, right? Like that's what happens in war, and innocent bystanders are always getting shot at, right? Like bullets are flying through, it's this even at the golf course type situation. Trump's golfing with other people. This guy starts open firing. It takes a lot to just kill one person. Never mind just unload on innocent people that you know who they are, right? Like there has to be a lack of any kind of a conscience and any of these things. But this guy, you know, he's he's running away, and this woman just decides to track this guy down because he's running suspiciously across the street. Takes photos of him, right? All these things. I mean, she's putting herself at risk physically and maybe even in terms of a lawsuit, whatever else, is involved here by taking photos of this guy, right?
Would do that, right?
Let's go back here.
How many people would have done that? Man or woman, how many people would have done that? Followed him, taken pictures of the license plate and also the type of truck that he was driving. He said, maybe none. So she's a hero. I got to meet her.
Woo! This is such a fake. And the stories always are just so bullshit, right? Because impossible things have to happen. All these things that they have to. The guy's on the roof for 8 minutes with counter snipers looking at an armed man on the roof. Where in the second golf course one, Secret Service starts firing just because they see what looks like a barrel of a gun from some distance away, and they just start firing at the guy. Miss him. The guy runs out into the street, and he's going to get away. No one knows who he is. They're not identifying the guy. I mean, maybe from his cell phone, if they could, track it or whatever. But again, how are they going to track it if they don't know who he is? And so the guy runs away, and without this woman, this guy gets away. It's just so suspect, right?
Because of that, they were then able to catch him in a very speedy drive down the various highways in Florida, but they got him, and they got him fast. But I think it's incredible. So the agent and that wonderful woman, and with all of my heart, I thank you all for your incredible valor. What you've done is incredible. What the people of our country and law enforcement does in this country is incredible. Tonight, let me also deliver a message straight to Kamala Harris. Have you heard of her?
Boo.
Who, by the way, was just rated by far the most liberal senator in the U.S. Senate, more so even further left than Bernie Sanders and Pocahontas.
Whoa.
Pocahontas.
I don't know who I'm booing. Look at these two guys with the hats.
So, Elizabeth Warren, she's more left than Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren. Let me also deliver a message straight to Kamala Harris, the radical left Democrat politicians, and the fake news media. Look how many are there.
Look at the fake news. Boo. Boo. Thumbs down to you guys. Thumbs down. Fake news media. Boo. 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 Boo.
We've got to get our media back in this country. We've got to get them back.
Yay. Yay. No, that is yay. Yay to that. Boo to the other thing.
But the message is it's time to stop the lies, stop the hoaxes, stop the smears, stop the lawfare and the fake lawsuits against me, and stop claiming your opponents will turn America into a dictatorship. Give me a break.
Boo. Boo on that. Stop that. Stop all that boo.
Because the fact is that I'm not a threat to democracy. They are.
They are. They're the threat to... I'm not. Like when they say I'm a threat to democracy, that's wrong and a lie, and it makes people want to shoot me. But when I say that, it's benevolent and it has good effect. When I say they're the threat, it's okay. But when they say I'm the threat, no, boo.
They're doing things in politics that have never been done before in the history of our country. And worst of all, with their open borders and bad elections, they have made us into a third world nation, something which nobody thought was even possible.
Boo.
Americans deserve a campaign based on the issues. We try and keep it on the issues. And God has now spared my life. It must have been God. Thank you.
You know, was it the lady or the Secret Service? It wasn't Kamala talking. Why didn't God make Kamala not call you a dictator to provoke this guy? You know, again, him invoking divinity is really crossing the line. You know, that's where I'm saying this guy's a real piece of shit. Because he's not a godly person. He doesn't meditate. He doesn't pray. He doesn't read, the Bible. He doesn't, any of these things. He's not a real Christian. He's not a real devotee. He's not a person who wants to work for God, right? And him invoking divinity, especially on these fake-ass shootings and all this bullshit stories, and it's just, that's when you get into a evil cult. It's just, he's a real piece of shit. Like, it's just, they're going to keep him around for as long as they can, and I don't know how this is going to go, but they will. He's a cancer on our society. He's just horrible. And, he's been horrible for a while. And so, this is crossing the line. The two things that have crossed the line was this. This is the worst of the two things. But then targeting the Haitians, I'll get into that in a moment. And how that affects us in the truth community, because there's negative effects about that, right? Like, he's just a piece of shit. He is a piece of shit, right? He is, like if piece of shit is a human being, it's Trump. Woo! God saved him, woo! Let's watch that again. Look at him cheer.
The issues. We try and keep it on the issues. And God has now spared my life. It must have been God. Thank you. Not once, but twice. And there are those that say he did it because Trump is going to turn this state around. He's going to
Who says that? Who says that? There's those that say that God did it. Like, who saying that?
Turn this country around. He's going to make America great again.
You're saying that. No one else is saying that. I mean, a bunch of your dopey cult followers. Maybe. Well, then why did God save you, right? If that's not the case, why would God save you?
And we're going to bring back religion into our country.
Woo! Yeah, these cult followers. Look at this woman. Yes, look at her go. Look at her. She's so psyched. Look at him. Yes, he's going to do it. He's going to do it. He's going to bring back religion. This saint of a man. He's Jesus. I think this is Jesus reincarnated. Yes, Trump.
These encounters with death have not broken my will. They have really given me...
Encounters with death, right? The first thing, they sprayed ketchup on your ear. The second thing, the guy wasn't even close to you. And a good Samaritan. I mean, the guy couldn't get by a Karen, right? The guy was undone by a Karen. Like a Karen brought the second shooter to his knees. A
much bigger and stronger mission. They've only hardened my resolve to use my time on earth to make America great again, for all Americans, to put America first.
Okay, it's just icky. He's a piece of shit. But he invoked a second piece of shit. Okay, before we get to that, today's Friday, September 20th. The video will be uploaded today and made public tomorrow, I think, right? 2 days, yeah. And so I just gave an audio of the next video, the introduction about how there's no multiverse. And I was talking about Trump and never admitting that he's wrong in these things. But I just want to say things, I've said this before about him invoking divinity. But going back to what he said there, God saved him so Trump could save the world. Trump is God's instrument. It implies that Trump is a serving God. And there's nothing in his system about serving God, right? It implies that God wants America to be great again, the way that Trump and the people that follow Trump define it. And that's not the case either, right? America has gone in a direction, there were problems when America was the way that people think it was great. the way that people say, "Oh, I want to make it great again." People thinking that that time was more godly. Well, yeah, religion was more a part of people's lives. It was less liberal. It was less atheistic. But it wasn't great because it wasn't divine. The religion sucks. The religion isn't connecting people to God. There was real problems there, right? Some of the problems that the liberal people have with that time, with that period of time, are legitimate complaints that are about how it wasn't divine, right? It wasn't divinely inspired because people weren't connected to God, right? People misuse God as well, like Trump is doing here. Trump is saying to these people that he is a servant of God, which he is not. He is not someone who consciously is serving God, right? Everybody plays out. There's a divine script here. There are things that are playing out. And the difference is intention. Like, are you surrendering to a higher force? Are you looking inside and connecting to divinity within you and asking God to guide you? Trump isn't doing that. Trump doesn't have some process. He would talk about otherwise. And even if he did, it would be lying because he doesn't do it. You can tell. You can tell Trump doesn't do that. Trump doesn't have some higher authority governing. I mean, he thinks of himself as like a king, an emperor, right? And even now a saint. And that whatever he does is divine, right? But him saying to these people that God has ordained him to do divine work, which is to save America, these people already think that way. They think America is going to be saved by God, that Jesus is going to win, that there's a competition between Jesus and the devil, and Jesus wants America because Jesus is really pro-American, and Jesus wants to save America from the demonic, twisted liberal agenda. And that's not the case at all. God doesn't, God wants to destroy this country, if anything, right? I mean, destroy the parasitic, cancerous aspect of it, the hedonistic, selfish aspect. Not that God wants anything, that there's just natural forces. When you perpetrate a fraud, an illusion, when you create an illusion, something that is away from the divine order of things, when you break these rules and you manipulate reality and you create another version of reality, then that version of reality is eventually going to be cleansed. It's an abomination, and that's what's happening. America is an abomination. The whole culture, the whole system, from the debt-based economic system to the egotistic, hedonistic lifestyle to all the bad stuff that's there. It's not the divine order of things. It's not natural, and it's doing damage to the natural order of things, and it's disconnecting people from God. It doesn't promote people to connect to God, right? I mean, Trump is a prime example of this. And so it's evil for him to tap into these people's belief that Jesus is going to save America and then say, I'm that guy. God sent me to save America, right? That's a powerful thing to say to people, right? Like, God sent me to save you. I'm doing God's work. It's a horrible thing to lie about, and Trump knows it's not possible. Like, Trump knows deep down that, he couldn't do it the first time, and it's going to be harder and less likely the second time because, make America great again. Never mind, do God's will because, there's forces there, and we're going in a certain direction, and there's no stopping it. There's no stopping the direction we're going in. And Trump is actually doing damage because, Trump is the one who's the catalyst behind all this agenda that these people are freaked out about. The way that the liberals are pushing this agenda is based in a hatred of Trump and demonizing all these people who are religious and who have, some desire to see, at least in terms of their religion, God's will be done, right? And so these people have been marginalized because they're Trump followers and they're following this guy, this cult, and they have no power, and the forces that be are all lining up against them, the corporate forces and the political forces and the forces of the media, and just the fact that America is being erased from this, is being cleansed from this abomination of America is being cleansed from the divine system, right? And so the divine forces are lining up against it. But Trump is lying to them and, their wishful thinking and their desperation. And it's taking advantage of these people. It's just a fucked up thing to do. When he knows deep down that it can't be done. Like, it's just campy. Whatever wishful thinking he has, he knows. Like, everybody knows deep down, this, you can't change what's going to happen. People are so degraded now. And, this is older people. These aren't young people. These are people who have to acknowledge that we've lost the youth. They've lost the youth. The youth is growing up without any sense of God, without any sense of character formation. They're weaker, more entitled, and they're being indoctrinated by this liberal agenda. And, whatever rebellion there is towards that in the youth, it's not. The majority of kids are buying into this worldview, and they don't understand any of the things that we grew up with. Like things from our culture. When your parents come here as immigrants and they want you to retain some of their culture and some of their heritage, it disappears after a couple generations. It's like not even a thing, right? And again, you're going to marry somebody who's not part of your ethnicity, more likely in America, after a couple of, maybe even the first generation Americans. But you see all this stuff from the past that's disappeared. Traditions and, all the things that used to be skills. Lifestyle. Everyone used to be able to garden and homestead. Everyone, had these abilities and things. And they've lost it. Like the majority of people, 200 years ago were all, all had so many more skills than we have, survival skills, and they're all gone. I've talked about that as one of the, premier ideas behind Pockets of the Future. And so all that stuff is gone, right? It's just eroded over time. So, this idea of what America would be if it was great again, that doesn't exist for the kids. They have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. Like they don't connect with their parents, and they didn't live that life, and they've grown up with the internet. And when they are our age, when they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, that's all this stuff will disappear. When they're making they have the power and money, they're gonna continue on with this stuff that they've been indoctrinated with, right? It's over. You've lost. Trump is appealing to older generation of people who had a much different upbringing. He's appealing to people who didn't grow up with the internet, right? Like he's got the people that vote for him are older. The younger people who hear America, make America great again, they don't even understand what the fuck that means, right? But we understand, and we understand when Trump says that God has ordained me to make America great again, why people gravitate to that, because they've lost their way. I talk about this more later in the video when I get into this stuff. It's pretty brutal. Like, this is a brutal video about Trump because he's gone to another level of being a piece of shit.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well,
okay, so Rudy Giuliani and Trump had a falling out. Now, this piece of shit, he was the mayor of New York when the big event happened that we know was fake, and he was he was a big perpetrator in that whole fraud. And he made that his signature, accomplishment, being mayor of that fatal day in New York City, that bullshit thing that, and he perpetrated all those lies. He ran for president based in that, the never forget bullshit, right? And so he sucks on every level. And he got, if you saw him in that Sacha Baron Cohen Borat 2, I think it is, where he's basically trying to have sex with this actress and they catch him by camera, is just icky. Like just a scumbag, icky thing to do. And he then became Trump's lawyer in the post-election era. And he lied, and Trump put him out there, and then Trump didn't pay him. Like he was begging Trump to pay him because he couldn't represent himself in these lawsuits. And now he owes like these people like $100-something million. These women who are, this woman who was, she was election official in Georgia. And Trump didn't pay him because Trump doesn't pay anybody. Trump stiffs people all the time, and we're going to get into that. Like, it's a thing that Trump does. As rich as Trump claims to be, he doesn't pay his people. And Rudy Giuliani was begging him to pay him, right? And, his reputation is smeared. And it got so bad he had this little sad little podcast, and he was hawking supplements. It was, I'll show you. I showed it a bunch of times. It's pathetic, right? The guy's reduced to like, being he's got no kind of views. He got some thousands of views, few thousand, and he's trying to sell supplements. He's like eating the supplements. Here, let me just.
Former mayor plugs in between his rants about Joe Biden and, yes, the deep state.
I mean, oh my goodness, you'd go on and on and on and on. No side effects to it. Nobody gets an overdose from taking vegetables. This is very, very good for you. It's natural. It gives you incredibly.
She's got this list here. Perception, deception versus reality. Russian liars, Hillary, Biden company. Collusion, truth, Trump. Liars. He's got these charts here. And then he's shoving supplements in his school hole.
Big boost in energy you would not expect. Pretty much right away. Maybe 2-3 days. I don't know. It seemed to me right away.
So they're mocking him on MSNBC. Indicted, isolated, and broke. And so he and Trump had a falling out. But I don't know what's happening here. Rudy's trying to regain some, status in Trump land. Trump blamed Rudy for failing on the election stuff. Rudy blamed Trump for selling him out and exposing him and leaving him, to be the fall guy. And the whole thing is a mess. This is what Trump does to people. But here he is, with just no other recourse of trying to reclaim his former glory where he was popular in New York for a brief period of time. And he's up there doing this. Remember when his fucking face was melting? Right?
Well, it's very, very wonderful to be with you in Nassau County, where I lived from the age of 7 until the age of 21.
Okay, thanks, Rudy. Let's get into his stuff here.
Down those stairs.
There we go.
We need, more than he needs us, Donald J. Trump. From the moment he walked down those stairs with his eloquent, beautiful First Lady, we probably didn't know it at the beginning.
You mean the escalator? It's an escalator. It's a famous escalator.
But there was a conspiracy building to destroy him.
No way. Okay, Friday, September 20th, I'm editing. I want to add this to what's going on here with Rudy. If Trump was a, divinely inspired person, like he was here that God was using him as an instrument, he wouldn't have been cheated out of the second election, right? And he would have saved America in the first 4 years. He wouldn't have fell for COVID. He wouldn't have done Operation Warp Speed. He wouldn't have people like Rudy Giuliani around him. He stiffed Rudy Giuliani and the other lawyers. And so he had these lawyers that he was pushing to find any kind of evidence so that they could overturn the election. And these guys went out on a limb for him, these lawyers. And when they themselves became part of a criminal, when they had criminal charges against them and they were being sued, he didn't pay for their legal defense, right? Which is a fucked up thing to do. Like, it's just totally Trump, right? He got these people to, go out on a limb and say things that were, not true for him. And then they were, they were put in legal jeopardy, and he wouldn't pay for their lawyers and their legal fees. And he didn't even pay Rudy for what Rudy did for him. He stiffed Rudy. He didn't even pay him for the work that he did, which is just typical Trump, because he's a piece of shit, right? If Trump was Jesus, if Trump was a saint, you think Jesus would have someone like Rudy Giuliani as one of his right-hand man, like some of these people that Trump has around him? That guy Cohen, Michael Cohen. Trump's a scumbag, and he has scumbags around him. He's he's selling all this shit to these people, and these desperate people are lapping it up. But you can see, like anybody should be able to see, this guy's a fucking disaster. We live in a time where there needs to be redemption and self-reflection, and we got to do better, and let's take a deeper look at things. That's what this is supposed to be about. Like this truth movement, I get into how it's been so compromised by the, all of it. But if you want to get right with God, you have to confront the hypocrisy of your religion that has lied to you for, since you've been indoctrinated in it. And then all the other aspects of your life where there's things going on. There's the surface story about how great America is. And then there was what America does to other people, what America does to the environment, all these things, right? America isn't like what people think it is. There's a lot of darkness, right? There's the great part of America, beautiful buildings, great, food supply. I mean, all the, the nature things. I mean, the parks and the, all this stuff, right? The lifestyle, the ability to move around in cars. I mean, there's some great things about American life, the American empire, but there's also, the criminal side and the demonic side, the hidden dark side that people don't like to think about. They don't want to know about, right? But it's there. And for someone to be like a redeemer and work for God, that person would have to be someone who's looking to change themselves and better themselves and looking for self-improvement and confronting some of their flaws. And, that's the opposite of what Trump is, right? Trump's the, I'm never wrong guy. Everything I do is divine. Everything I do is great, and when I say something that's mean and disparaging to people, that's fine. And when somebody does it to me, they're being nasty and evil, and they're attacking me and I'm a victim. But when I do it, it's, I should be able to do it with no consequences. Because he's a little spoiled little brat, he's not even a man. Like he's just a little child up there.
Because they knew what we didn't know. What they were stealing, what they were taking.
This dude waving over here. Let's go back here. Watch this guy wave. This guy waving.
What they were taking and how they were destroying the values of our great country. And they immediately sensed when he said, "I'll make America great again," that he was going to be the one that would have the courage, the independence, and the guts to expose them.
Okay, this is really sad. And he's getting no kind of a,
And they began right away. Before he was even the leading Republican candidate, Hillary Clinton paid $1 million to frame him.
Boo.
And Obama knew it. And Biden knew it.
Boo. Everyone thought Trump was a joke candidate. They couldn't believe he was catching fire. Like they had no idea. And you knew that because even on election night, they were stunned. And so they did not believe that America would seriously elect that guy. No, you could hear all the people talk about it. From George Clooney. There's all these people that said Trump had no chance to win. And they were dismissing him as a legitimate candidate. They thought he was just a goof. And in reality, Trump himself was not even running to be president. Like he was just some self-promotional bullshit that he was doing. Like Trump didn't think, the last debate, Trump sort of quit. Like he knew he wasn't going to win. The polls were against him. And he didn't really have an election team. Like he didn't have people on the ground. He didn't have a ground game. The Republican Party wasn't embracing him. They were just waiting for him to go away. Like they wanted Jeb Bush. They were waiting for Jeb Bush, right? Jeb's own father was like stunned that George W. Bush was the one they chose. Jeb was the smart one. Jeb was the one that was, between him and George W., Jeb was the cream of the crop. And Trump destroyed Jeb Bush, like called him low energy. Jeb Bush had no, and after George W. and the failing of the wars and the failing of the neocons, people just didn't want another Bush. They were sick of Bush. and so they Trump just destroyed all these people. He went after them, and I don't know when Trump this all of a sudden realized that he might be president. I mean, it didn't look like he had any chance. And then all of a sudden he was. Like, he was stunned as most of anybody else. So this is just bullshit, right? You know, whatever they did to get Trump, it was just what they were doing with anybody. They were, you know, every candidate they have, they start, you know, that's why Kamala Harris is in kind of better shape than she would be, because they were planning to run against Joe Biden. And, of course, they have plans for Kamala, but they didn't shift as easily into running against Kamala as the Democrats did shifting to her from Biden, because the Democrats had known this was going to happen. And Trump just isn't smart. He doesn't have good people around him. We'll get into that in a bit, right? You know, Trump doesn't have good people around him.
Remember Russian collusion? Russian collusion is a paid-for frame-up.
It's a frame-up, you guys. It's a frame-up. Okay, so I move forward here. He is a horrible public speaker.
That close.
Here, let's go back just a little bit. He's talking about the first assassination attempt here.
And they corrupted our precious criminal justice system like they have destroyed our free speech. And he survived and got stronger, survived and got stronger. And then someone tried to kill him.
No way. Did that happen? Where was I? What happened? What are you talking about?
That close. And he got up, and what did he do? Immediately, fight! 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 Fight!
Put some bass in your voice, bro. That was bad. Fight! 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 Let's watch that again. That's freaking wonderful.
And he got up, and what did he do? Immediately, fight!
Fight! Fight! Fight! Fight! Fight! My dogs are looking at me again.
At a time when the world is at war, who do we want for president?
Donald Trump.
Cackling Kamala? Kamala, what are you going to do about inflation? I was born to a middle-class family, and my mother used to go to the grocery store.
That's actually pretty funny.
We want fight!
Fight! Fight! Fight!
Who will protect your children? That idiot or Donald J. Trump?
I don't know who.
Who will protect you against the 10 million, 15 million, 20 million illegal aliens they let into this country who are creating a massive crime wave? That idiot or Donald J. Trump?
Oh, no, you're not giving us the answers. Like, which one? Fight, 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 fight.
You're paying anywhere from 30 to 90% more for everything you buy. Under that person, it'll go up. Under Donald
I mean, you already called her an idiot twice.
J. Trump, we'll be back where we were. Best economy ever. Donald Trump handed the Biden-Harris regime, a world at peace with the Abraham Accords. And now we have a world at war. We have a world that could be a world war.
It could be a world war, a world at war. It could be a world war if it works out, like if it just everything lines up. Fight, fight,
Boy,
fight.
do we need Donald Trump. I remember from the hard drive, and I don't know if he's in the audience, but he's my good friend, and he lives here, and he works for Bruce Blake, but Bob Costello and I are the people responsible for getting the hard drive out. That's why they want to destroy us.
That's why he wants to destroy him, because he got that hard drive out.
That's why they hate me.
Look at him point to himself.
And I am so proud of it. John Mac Isaacs only trusted me to get it out. And with Steve Bannon, who's in jail right now, we got it out. We got it out.
We did that. We did it, and it didn't work at all.
You know, the president always ends his speeches with "Make America Great Again." But you know what he has to do this time?
What?
This time, he has to make America, America again.
That's crazy.
And you're going to do it for him. God bless Donald J. Trump, his wonderful family.
Okay, so I fast forward, I have to find the part here. So I didn't miss it. It's here at the end. It was the title of this video.
No more! Stop it! If there's
Here, like back here.
America again. And you're going to do it for him. God bless Donald J. Trump, his wonderful family. I pray to God that he keeps them alive. No more attacks! No more attacks! No more! Stop it! If there's
Stop it.
anybody behind it, I'll find them. I did it to the mafia. I can do it to them.
They'd be behind those attacks. And when you find out it's Donald Trump, when you find out it's Donald Trump behind the attacks, then yeah, that was spectacular. Rudy at his very worst. Okay, so I just want to move to the next segment here, but before that, I just want to say, Trump being saved by a Karen, right? I mean, the whole thing is a ridiculous story, but he's trying to make this woman sound like a hero. She sees a guy running across the street. The guy's running, maybe fairly fast, but the guy's like, in his 50s. And, they weren't that far away from him. And whoever's shooting at him, I mean, they, maybe were like, well, hesitant to, they see the gun barrel drop, right? And so they don't run over there, but they get over there at some point and they have to pursue the guy, right? I'm assuming there's no fence between, he didn't have to hop over a fence. And so they would have had the guy, if he's running across the road, they would have had the guy as in a line of sight. But, that's just the stupid part. But this woman is driving by and she turned around her car because that was part of the story I heard before. So she's driving past this guy, sees him running, and she decides to follow him to his vehicle, take multiple pictures of his vehicle and his license plate, and then call the cops just because the guy's running across the street, right? If that was, let's say, a black person, and this was a Karen, and she racial profiled him, right, in some way, like it would be, this wouldn't be considered a hero. And it seems, it's just a Karen thing to do, right? And so, like, who does that, like Trump says? The whole story is just, like, silly. They have these narratives, like they create a story. Like when you're making up a story, when you're writing a fictional story, you include like real life events and real things that happen and, whatever it is. But you're making it up, right? When you create a lie, you're making up a story. And you have the various narrations of the thing, right? And maybe you act it out, like you have the people act it out. So you hire, actors. You have a guy who sits in the woods and, does whatever he does. And then this thing happens, and then, they see the barrel, and like they fire some blanks at him, and he runs across the street, and then you have this woman driving by, but it's like goofy. Like you saw this as a movie, you're like, yeah, that's not realistic at all. And Trump, talking about like some kind of a miracle. And the other piece is when Trump says, he's going to win New York, the New Yorkers know that's not possible. Like it's not possible. So there's no reason for him to campaign there. Whatever reason he's in New York, it has nothing to do with the election, because it doesn't matter whether he gets 20% more of the vote. Like Biden got 69% of the vote and Trump got 29 something, right? Like Trump didn't even get 30%. And so, it was an overwhelming victory, right? Like even if Trump got 15% more vote, he's still going to lose by, over 5%. And so he's going to lose his state. There's no doubt about it. Everyone knows he's going to lose it. It's just silly. Like the whole thing is just silly, right? So going into this next segment, the God thing is really bad. Him invoking God, that's the worst. But what he's done to this, Springfield, Ohio, and these Haitian people, it's really bad as we go through it. It's predicated on this. The whole thing is predicated, which I'll point out as we go through it, is what the truth community has done is built up the lack of credibility, what we've done for years here. Long before Trump flirted with the truth community or any of these motherfuckers, bother to, before the QBs and all you QBs and flat earthers that came in here, all you Republicans, you right-wing people that, weren't a part of the, the higher level truth stuff. You guys are late to the party. We started this years and years ago. And then people like my older brother and, some of these Eustace Conway, some of these other guys, like William Cooper, people like that, who were pushing this out there, in complete underground fashion on AM radio and, these other, shortwave radio and little, newsletters and things like this, college, stations and things, AM stations. This stuff was basically nobody knew about, right? Like nobody, most people didn't know about it. And then when the truth community sort of came to life in 2001, where it became more of a, a mainstream thing, it was predicated on us proving that the mainstream media and the government was lying to you. And so we all have that suspicion. And so they've used us, the work that we've done, to push their bullshit, right? Like Trump's bullshit. Because when the mainstream media says, hey, there's no evidence that these people are eating cats, people are like, well, we don't listen to you anyway. But you shouldn't listen to Trump, because Trump's a lying piece of shit, and so does J.D. Vance. And they're totally lying about this and making this into something that it's not. It's a real problem. But they're getting away from the real problem, which is started under Trump, because Haitians were moving to Springfield in 2018. Trump isn't telling you that, right? Like, why isn't he telling you that? How did they get there? How did they get to America? And how they get from wherever they came into America, the entry point of America, they didn't go straight to Springfield, Ohio. There's no direct flight from Haiti to Springfield, Ohio, right? Like they had to go from somewhere in America to Ohio. How'd that happen? Why did that happen, right? But understanding this, he's really fucked the truth community over, because he's using something that shouldn't be misused. The idea that the mainstream media is not credible, but sometimes they are, because sometimes they can tell the truth and it works in their favor. And it's working in their favor here because it makes Trump look like an idiot, because he's just lying and fear-baiting, a real problem. Like, he's taking a real problem and then he's making up like stupid lies that only, help him in the short term and screw the rest of us over. All right, so let's get to it here.
This is not sustainable by any country. This is not sustainable. How about in Springfield, Ohio? They had 32,000. This is a little beautiful town. No crime, no problem. 32,000 illegal immigrants come into the town.
Okay, so the number is 20,000. So he's gotten the numbers wrong. He said it was 40,000 people, and first he said 20,000. Now it's up to 32. And so it was 1/4 of the population, which is bad enough. 20,000 people coming into a town of 60,000 that used to be 80,000, but it's a town on hard times because a factory is closed and they don't have jobs there, right? It's a town on the decline. This is problematic, and it's happening in at least a couple places I know of personally, and I'm sure it's happening all over the country. And that's a huge story. Why are 20,000 people in there? But they've sensationalized it in a very QB way and made it about eating pets, which minimizes the real part of the story, right? Like, if these people are eating pets, it's possible, but it's just based in a rumor. And a woman who found her cat. Like, the original post on Facebook, the woman who posted it has since found her cat, right? So she posted it, and then, someone posted it about somebody else's cat, and the woman had found her cat by the time the post was up. So the whole thing is fake, and he's playing on people's worst, their worst tendencies, their worst fears, their smaller selves, and just all of it. Like, it's a bad thing he's doing here. So I want to add this. you can accuse people of something, and this is also what we do here in the truth community. There are things that are, I do them for fun, and you put out something that you're not 100% sure of, and so you have to make it light. You understand, like, when you're accusing somebody of something like somebody in your life. Let's say you had something, there's a break of trust from someone you loved, right? Someone that you're in a relationship with, like slight evidence that the person might be cheating or whatever it is, right? Or maybe just even flirting, like, not even so much, maybe like somebody stole money from you, something, that was, you have circumstantial evidence. You don't know for sure. And you think you need to ask the person about it, and you got to get an explanation about it, their side of the story. And sometimes the explanation, what you originally jumped to the conclusion of something, it isn't what the person intended to do or was doing. Like, you saw some evidence, or you had, whatever it is. And so it's very vague, is what I'm saying. And so there's a rumor that so some woman is saying that her cat is missing, and one of her friends posts on Facebook, "My neighbor's cat is missing. I wonder if it's those Haitians," right? And so that's where all this came from. This is what generated this response. Like, it's a fucked up response because Trump wants to demonize immigrants. So Trump has an agenda, as does J.D. Vance and all these people around her, Laura Loomer and all these people, all these, scumbags. And so they want stories that make the immigration issue sound horrific. And this is what the QBs always did. It's a huge problem in the truth community. And so they don't care if it's factual or not. They don't care who it hurts. They just care it supports their agenda and what they're trying to push here, which is this idea that these immigrants are doing horrible things and are should be scared of this problem. And so when you have something very small like this, in terms of the amount of evidence that's not a slam dunk, you can go and ask people about it. And J.D. Vance did, and we'll get to that in a moment, right? But you just don't go out and state it as a fact. You have to, and this is what I learned to do. Like, in the beginning when I made videos, I did what everyone else was doing in the truth community. I would hear something, and I figured somebody vetted it somewhere, and that it was, just because it sounded good, I would say it was fact, and it wasn't. And so you got to get, you have to have some sense of integrity, which I later, I'm like, all right, if I'm presenting information here, I have to be clear about what's fact and what's speculation, what the source is. And then I started finding so many of the things that people were saying was just bullshit. It's just misinformation. There's so much misinformation in the truth community. And so you're responsible to not just look at one side of the story. You got to look at all sides of the story. And you got to, understand where things are coming from, right? And, you're going to hear me talk about this more as we go through this. I'm editing here, so I already, know what's coming up. But in terms of this thing that happened, it's not something where you can just throw out accusations. And Trump stated this like a fucking fact at the debate. They're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. And he, at that time he actually knew, or should have known, people in his camp knew that was bullshit. But before they knew that, they should have known this isn't, this is speculation. And they shouldn't have said it. Like, they should have, done research and been responsible, but he's not, right? That's why he's such a piece of shit. You just don't hurl things like, oh, these people eat fucking pets. These Haitians eat pets. You don't throw something like that out there. I mean, it's, a horrible thing to do. Like, only, self-serving pieces of shit like Trump will do these kind of things.
So they almost doubled their population in a period of a few weeks. Can you believe it? And you know what?
Not in a few weeks. It started in 2018. They didn't just dump in all those people, airlift them in. It went over a period of years that this has happened. The first people that were Haitian that came to that town that were immigrants came in 2018 when he was president. They didn't bring 20,000 people there in 2 weeks. You can't even begin to do that. You have to bring them in slowly. So that's a complete lie, right?
But they've got to get much tougher. I'm going to go there in the next 2 weeks. I'm going to Springfield and I'm going to Aurora.
It's going to make things worse, right? Sensationalizing the places, using the places, and putting his own bullshit on them, right? He just sucks as a person. He's the cancer right now. And, the political system, I used to like Trump because he made a mockery of the political system. And he was one of the true scumbags that was willing to be a scumbag while the rest of these guys pretend not to be a scumbag, right? Like Trump lies about being a scumbag, but he does it in a scumbaggery way. But now it's gotten so bad where he's just degrading everything even worse than it already was with these other people, right? These horrible people.
You may never see me again, but that's okay.
Why, are you a cat? Are you a dog? What are you saying you may never see you again? Like,
what I got to do. Whatever happened to Trump? Well, he never got out of Springfield.
Again, I mean, the people of Springfield and people running the town, that's not good for them. You're a piece of shit. What a piece of shit this guy is. Like, he's a total piece of shit.
In Ohio by like 15 points a lot, and we're going to take care of Ohio, and we're going to take care of Colorado, and we're going to take care of every single state in the union. They're all under siege. A lot of people don't talk about. But think of this. So the mayor of Springfield, and I think he's a very nice person.
He's a very nice person.
But instead of saying we're getting them all out, we're getting them out, he says very simply, we're hiring teachers to teach them English. Can you believe it? We are hiring interpreters. So when they go to school and take the place of our children in school, we have an interpreter. Each one will have a private interpreter.
Okay, so this is, this is really bad, right? So this guy is Rob Rue. He's a Republican, right? So this is a Republican, and he's dealing with this immigration crisis there, and they just can't get rid of the people. Like, Trump's saying that, they're going to take 20 million people. How are they going to do that? Like I said, who's going to take them out of the country? But how are they going to round up all these people? Some of these people, most of these people have jobs, right? Some of them are living on, or let's say some of them are criminals, and some of them are living off of some sort of social services the government's giving them. Most of them are going to be doing jobs for people. They're part of work crews. And you're taking, 20 million people are doing shit jobs that nobody else wants out of the country. I mean, maybe these jobs are, whatever it is. You have to round them up. You're going to have to hire how many immigration officials? I mean, who's going to do all the rounding up of these people, right? Like, how are you going to do this? You're going to have to rely on all these cities and states and things. They're obviously getting money for these immigrants, right? And so, it isn't, none of these things that Trump's saying is accurate. This guy's a Republican. He's not a Democrat. He's not working in cahoots with Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris didn't dump these people in there in a few weeks. Like, it's just really bad. It's a really bad lie.
What the hell is wrong with our country? No. We're getting them out of our country. They came in illegally. They're destroying our country. We're getting them out. They're going to be brought back to the country from which they came.
You mean Haiti? Say Haiti. He's not willing to say Haiti. Or say Haitian people, right? And there's a lot of Haitian people in Florida who are probably maybe even voting for him. Because there's a lot of Haitians in Florida. They make up a, percentage of the population there. They make up 2.4% of the population, 500,000 of them. That's going to be the highest amount of Haitians anywhere. And so, these people are, part of the voting bloc, right? Some of these people are, many of them are going to be American citizens at this point.
I will protect our country. I will protect our country. Think of it. She will surrender our country. That's what they're doing. They still refuse to acknowledge that these people have to be taken out. And you start with the stone cold killers, the murderers, the drug dealers. You get them out.
What about the pet eaters, right? When do the pet eaters come in? And so, he's fear baiting and he's making up things. This is not true, right? And then you have to rely on the mainstream media. That's the problem here, because Trump is so bad of a truther. Like, he's worst kind of truther who just, makes up these various claims. And so where are you going to get the truth if Trump is distorting all these things? and there's all these truthers out there that are carrying water for Trump and just parroting what he's saying, then where do you go? Like, the truth community has been fucked by this guy and all these truthers that have gone along with him that are posting these things, right? I know there's a couple of truthers. One of the truthers that, when I asked people, who else they watched in terms of truthers, they pointed out a couple of people who were, I thought were good, solid truthers. People, because I was looking to advertise on other truthers' channels, right? And so I said, what other truthers are you guys, I said to my audience, what other truthers are you guys listening to? And they said a few of these people, and my wife had watched a video from this one truther that said all this stuff about the Haitian people there. And again, getting away from the real problem. There's a reason why the Haitian people are there. Money has exchanged hands. They're getting money in Springfield. The federal government's giving them money to take these people in. And they have empty housing there, and that's being filled. And there's, related jobs, and there's benefits to the economy. And these kids have to go to school, so they're probably getting federal money for that, right? And I don't want my money spent on any of this, but there's a reason behind it. It's more complex than we know, right? And so, I don't want my tax dollars going to these things. I don't want my tax dollars going to the Ukraine, right? These things like that, right? That's a legitimate issue, but we don't know what's going on with these people and why they're here, and who has been, if they're there illegally. He's not even willing to say Haitians. Like, he's willing to demonize all these people, but he won't call them Haitians. Say it's Haitians. It's 20,000 Haitians. He's calling them criminals. He's calling them all these things, pet eaters. But he's not naming the group. Before he called them, he said they were from Venezuela. Like, he didn't even know where the fuck they were from, and yet he was perpetrating all these lies because he's a worthless piece of shit, right? Okay, so here's what it says here. How did the Haitian become home for thousands of people? How did Springfield, Ohio become home of thousands of Haitians, right? And so, again, this, this is CNN. CNN sucks. But because the truth community has been so compromised, this is their story. This is what CNN is saying. Haitians in Florida and Haitians in South America heard from friends and family about Springfield and its need for workers. They began arriving to take jobs in warehouses, manufacturing, and the sector service, and employers urged the new workers to encourage other Haitians to join them. So if there was an influx of shit jobs in Springfield, a lot of people had left that area. They lost 20,000 people. And they had Haitians move there. There's Dayton, Ohio, is right next to, it's one of the bigger cities near Springfield. And I went there to an ashram that was purchased by Indians who do the Sajmarg meditation. Now they're heartfulness shills. I mean, it's one of the worst places for heartfulness, cult thing. My meditation's been taken over. But there were a lot of Indians there in Dayton, Ohio, right? This guy, Vance's wife, is a Haitian. We'll get into that, is an Indian. And so you see there's people, like a lot of an immigrant population ends up going to a certain area. There's certain areas that are just, there's all these people from, I think Sweden or, the Minnesota Vikings, right? In Minnesota, there's a high number of people from a certain part of Europe, Sweden area, I guess, or Denmark, or one of those places, right? Or, these kind of places, right? There's places where Amish people are. And they want to go with other people. People who feel strongly about their culture want to be around other people like them. And so the Haitians started to arrive in Springfield in 2018 under Trump. And then they started to tell other Haitians, oh, there's a place for you here. And they all started to go there. And therefore, the companies that are important to the economy there are encouraging this, and so the town is encouraging it, right? And so this is, again, it's coming from CNN, but Trump has distorted reality so much that CNN is more believable than the so-called truth community. And so I'm editing here. I want to add this, Friday, September 20th. I shot this on Thursday. The rest of the stuff you're seeing here. And so I'm going to get into, I'm just over Trump and his just being a, piece of shit stuff. And I get into this, how this element of the truth community, let me just say this here. So the mainstream media got caught lying. And I talk about this coming up, right? And, they not just lying a little bit, but like being deceptive overall. Like we all know that. That's why the truth community was born. And so I want to make this clear here because I don't think I say it anywhere. That created the vacuum for the truth community. There are some people who seek a deeper explanation or story or don't feel right about, being lied to or don't, I can't reconcile it. And so when they find out they're being lied to, like everybody does, because most people believe the media and the government lied to them to some extent. It's just a matter of variation, right? A matter of degree. And so for those people who can just accept it, well, that's just the system. They don't have time and energy to deal with it. They're not deep thinkers. They're not looking into whatever their, reason for not exploring it. That's their reason. But there's some people who say, well, if this is all lies, what's the truth, right? And that's all of us here to some extent. People who are curious, not Trumpers, not Cubies, not those people, because they're already convinced that they know the truth, that the right wing is, the Democrats are the evil ones, and the right wing of deep state stuff, the people like Trump, these people. But people who want the truth. And so you go seeking a truthful explanation. And, the ones that were given by people in the truth community, the videos, they were so much more compelling because they weren't mainstream crappy media. It was people just you could identify with and connect with who were doing research. And, when they told a different version, it sounds so much better. But sometimes that version was just as bad or maybe in some cases even worse than the original version. And then, of course, all these people came in. I explained this later in the video. All these different disinformation agents came in. So this original problem was caused by CNN, but now the truth community is just filled with so many people who are either repeating up lies or making up things or, when you look at something, like let's say you want to vote for Trump and you're a Trump supporter and you're against Kamala and you want Trump. Well, you're going to, any kind of narration that's there, anything that supports him, in this case, there's an immigration problem. And you want to, you believe that the immigration problem is going to wreck the country and that Trump is going to save you from immigration. And if Kamala's left to her, if she's elected, she keeps on doing what she's doing, the immigrants are going to overrun the country. And if that's your belief and you go in with this prejudice and then Trump drops this thing about the Haitians, then you start looking at the Haitians like, oh my God, this is what I'm talking about. And you start telling your friends and they're eating pets, but there's no real evidence to support that, right? It's just a rumor, a very vague rumor by this, that turned out to be false. And there's no real evidence to support it, right? And so, like, this is a problem with the so-called truth community now because it's mostly made up of people just regurgitating lies. Like it's become another version of the mainstream media, but even worse. And I talk about this, I don't want to repeat myself here. I get into it coming up. But so what I'm talking about here, it sucks. You can't believe CNN. You can't believe mainstream media, but it's now more accurate than the truther stuff coming out of people who are Trump supporters. Anybody who claims to be a truther and also a Trump supporter is not a truther anymore, because the stuff that he says, if you don't know that the Band-Aid gate and the ketchup gate, I mean, if you're not even willing to, throw out the possibility that Trump was in on that when he clearly was, it's so fake, it's so WWE, it's so stupid, right? And these truthers are out there, they won't even question it. And so that means the truth community is just gone. Like whatever used to be the truth community, the left-right paradigm people who are thoughtful and, who are open to any possibility and did thorough research, like it's just been decimated because of Trump and people following behind Trump and thinking he's a savior, desperate people looking for something that can't be, right? A solution to the system that, is doomed to failure because it's demonic and the whole thing is, and it's, it goes against God's will and it's hurting all of us and taking us in the wrong direction. And so it's, the truth community is suffering just as much from everything else from idiocracy. All right, let's get back to it here. The one thing I did want to say, I want to point this out because I don't say this anywhere else. Blaming Trump for all of this stuff is correct in what I'm going to say because Trump is the nightmare in the middle of the storm, right? He's the eye of the evil storm. But the reason Trump exists and the reason the truth community exists, because, the people who ran mainstream media and the politicians and everyone else are liars and deceivers, and they have manipulating people through this deception. And so, the inevitability of someone like Trump, who wasn't like a pure truther, but was going to use this idea of the mainstream media being deceptive and lying, was going to happen. It was inevitable, right? Trump was inevitable because they needed somebody like him who could sort of get a lot of these disgruntled people, truthers, under an umbrella and represent what they believe, but also discredit all those people by being irresponsible and self-centered. Trump just cares about Trump. I mean, that should be the mantra. That should be Trump's bumper sticker. Trump just cares about Trump. Literally, like his family, everybody else. Like Trump is so narcissistic and so self-centered. In a society that's narcissistic and ego-driven and self-centered, Trump is like one of the top people. Like he's just one of those people whose selfishness and his myopic view of the world is, pushes beyond even the most flagrant and, diagnosable narcissists. So here's a local newscast from ABC 6 and 666 here. Look, 666. And here's the...
It's that salacious story of immigrants and pets that has vaulted the issue of immigration to the top of the headlines. But here in Springfield, I talked to a number of people who say, despite the city denying it, they believe the story.
See, Trump is using this for dopes like this. Look at this guy.
Matthew Ball says he was surprised to hear Springfield, Ohio.
Look, the guy's got a cartoon hat on here. Like some Japanese animation stuff.
Ball says he was surprised to hear Springfield, Ohio mentioned so many times during Tuesday's presidential debate. The salacious story mentioned during the debate,
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats.
is something Ball says he believes.
That's why you have them going to Snyder Park and chopping off ducks' heads in front of little kids and stuff.
The story persists despite the denials of city leaders.
We have not been able to verify any credible reports or specific claims of pets being harmed.
Wednesday, the city manager releasing a statement on Facebook calling the stories rumors.
It is disappointing that some of the narrative surrounding our city has been skewed by misinformation circulating on social media.
You really think that happened? I mean, the city says they don't have evidence that...
Okay, let's say the city's not believable because they're not, right? Politicians lie. And let's say the media lies, right, which they do, right? This was stories that started on the internet and were put out by people who are known liars and disinformation agents, including that skank that Trump is banging right now. Whatever, if I forget her name, whatever her name is, that witch-like woman. And... they didn't have anything credible. Like, they don't have video of Haitians taking cats. Like, these things that were claimed about the Haitian people by citizens on social media. I mean, the woman who posted it regrets posting it because she heard about from a friend the cat thing. And so there's no credible information that they're eating dogs and cats. And it could be possible, but it's not proven. And if it isn't proven, you don't fucking say it because, Trump isn't saying because he cares about the cats. Trump's not saying it because he cares about the dogs. He's not going to Springfield because he wanted to make it better there because he's going to make it worse. It's going to divide the people against the Haitian people, all the Trumpers that are in that area. So it's going to make it worse on the people there, right? And so, it's just a bad thing. And it's irresponsible. Like, it's irresponsible to put this information out there without knowing. You don't know this for a fact. I don't believe it's the case, right? And, why aren't the Haitian people eating dogs and cats in Florida? There's 500,000 of them in Florida. And why isn't DeSantis, who's, like a piece of shit himself, saying that these Haitian people are eating cats and dogs in Florida? Why isn't Trump saying, like, if it's a cultural thing, it's voodoo, why the fuck are they eating them in Florida? There's 500,000 of them in Florida. It's the number one place in America where they're Haitian people. Haiti's right off the coast of Florida. Why aren't they talking about them doing voodoo and eating cats and dogs there? Why isn't that a story? Like, this should be about all Haitian people eating cats and dogs fucking everywhere, right? They only do it in Springfield. What about the Simpsons? Like, are they, what about their dog? And so the whole thing is just silly. And if you believe it, it's like you're believing a known piece of shit liar who's manipulating the dumbest level, appealing to the lowest common denominator of humanity, the lower human nature in these people that are his followers. And I think most of them know it's bullshit, but they don't care because Kamala's evil, and as long as Trump's going to get rid of Kamala, they'll perpetrate these lies. Okay, so we know J.D. Vance's wife is East Indian. And in Dayton, Ohio, 2.8% of their population is Asian, non-Hispanic. And so I think the majority of those people are East Indians. There's a lot of East Indians there. I mean, I know of many of them. And J.D. Vance is their senator, right? And so, there's groups of people like this that just happen to go into certain places, right, and make up a percentage of the citizenship there. And whatever reason the Haitians have made it to that area, they're there, and they're a part of the community, and people have known about it who live there for a while, and maybe they don't like it, and maybe the Haitians do things that are not great, but Trump is expanding and exaggerating the problem, and he's making the problem worse because he's a selfish prick who's a piece of shit, right? So then, when the truth community that's been contaminated by Trumpers loses its credibility, then you have people like this who have lost their credibility long ago, who are more accurate about something like this because Trump is such a bad liar, right? Like he just has no personal accountability for things that he says. Let me say this a different way. CNN and MSNBC and all these people and Kamala Harris then get to be the truthers because Trump's a piece of shit liar and they're putting out disinformation and they get to, debunk him, and they everyone wants to be a truther now. Like they hate us because they ain't us. Like they want to be this. They want to, be able to call bullshit on all these things, but they can't do it on the mainstream stuff. So they have to do it on Trump and Trumpers. And Trump just lies, and he gives them that. He gives them, this narrative where they're the ones who are, talking truth to power, and they're the ones who are, disseminating truth and exposing the lies. And so that's like a horrible thing, because these guys are suck. These are the original pieces of shit, but Trump has turned them into truthers.
Cognitive dissonance tops our 2024 lead. Let's go back a few months to the time frame after the June 27th presidential debate, but before President Biden dropped out of the race. Democrats were essentially telling the public to ignore what we had all seen and heard from Biden at the debate, the first debate.
Okay, so we agree with that, right?
Also arguing, mind you, that Mr. Trump was not capable of telling the truth. Now, I might have said at the time that that was the most glaring moment of cognitive dissonance in the 2024.
So he's showing you that he sees that the Democrats have done that. The Democrats were lying for years about Joe Biden being senile. He was one of the few people that were hinting at it. They all knew, but he was someone that kind of talked about it. Like, he sucks. You know how much I've made fun of Jake Tapper's somber. He's not has a somber tie today. But, I make fun of CNN and Tappers and all these people all the time because they just lie about everything. They're not accurate in the way they present this news, right? But what he said right there so far is, accurate. The Democrats did that. We all can agree on that. The Democrats lied about Biden being senile and said that the real problem was Trump's lies in the debate, not to the fact that Joe Biden was shitting in his Depends diapers, right?
Race. But then came this last week. Former President Trump and his running mate, Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio, are criticizing the news media and Democrats for what they call irresponsible rhetoric that they allege was behind the thankfully unsuccessful assassination attempt against Mr. Trump on Sunday. At the same time that they're doing that, Trump and Vance and their minions continue to spread lies about Haitian migrants eating pets in Springfield.
So I said that same thing, right? Trump is whining about all the rhetoric that is causing this fake shit. Remember this piece of shit thing here? Like, we had this fake giant bandage that said his convention. It turned out that he had no stitches. He didn't even need one Band-Aid. Never mind this frickin' tampon, this maxi pad he put on there. Remember that lying piece of shit doing that, right? To exaggerate this WWE fake thing that didn't happen, and then blame it on the Democratic rhetoric while he's putting these not only Haitian kids, but the school kids at risk there because of he's turning up the heat on an area and creating problems that, didn't exist before or maximizing already problematic situation. He makes everything worse because he's a selfish, low-life, losing piece of shit. And we're going to get into he's even a failure at business, and I didn't even know that. I mean, I knew about the bankruptcies, which, but it's even worse than I thought.
Ohio, those lies are now disrupting life in that town. So let's start with these ongoing lies and the fact that the Wall Street Journal today confirmed that the Trump campaign actually knew or had been told that the Springfield rumors were false back on September 9th. The Journal reports that Vance's team contacted the city, Springfield, that morning. And here's how Springfield City Manager Brian Heck described the call with the Vance staffer. Quote, he asked point blank, are the rumors true of pets being taken and eaten? I told him, no. There was no verifiable evidence or reports to show this was true. I told them these claims were baseless, unquote.
Okay, so Vance is their senator. And he's an Ohio senator, and he's their senator. And he calls up the town manager, which, can be fact-checked, right? The town manager could say, no, he quoted, this is a quote from him in the Wall Street Journal, which is, is owned by Fox. It's a right-wing leaning publication. And so this guy goes to, a Fox-related newspaper and says, I told J.D. Vance there's no credible report to this. And so J.D. Vance, being the piece of shit he is, ignores the guy and publishes it anyway. He tweets about it, knowing that it's false, and then Trump gets up on, they'll show you here.
Baseless. But Vance's tweet making the allegation stayed up, and the very next day, former President Trump elevated this lie to 67 million viewers during that second presidential debate.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs.
Haitians are eating the dogs, but not in Florida. They don't eat them because they can eat gators and boas and pythons and flamingos. Why aren't they killing flamingos in Florida and geese? Like, why? There's so many more of them in Florida. Why not in Florida? Why are they only doing it in Springfield?
The people that came in, they're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
Dogs, nope. Cats, nope. Pets, nope. Nope. No evidence for any of that. And here we are 8 days after that debate. And
okay, so there hasn't been people come out. It's just showing you that this has actually happened. This is just rumors. And again, the fact that there's 20,000 people from a country going to a state like that, going to a city, and making up 1/4 of the population, no matter how they got there, is the real story, right? And how many of them are legal? How many came through the border legally? What's the process, right? But if those people are all holding jobs in that city and Trump goes in and deports them, right? But it's probably, not so many of them are there legally, so we don't even know. But if he deports them, then that economy will suffer. And, he can't do it anyway. He's making false promises, right? It's just Trump being, sucky. It's just him sucking. And he's, the damage he's doing to the reputation of the Haitian people. But I think at this point, everyone knows Trump's a lying piece of shit, even his followers. Like, they don't take him seriously because he's a fucking clown, right? Okay, so let me just add this again in the editing process. The town manager and the mayor and the people of Springfield, and even the governor, who's a piece of crap, we'll get into him later. I think I mentioned him later on. They don't have any real reason to lie. I mean, you think that they're covering up for the Haitians? Maybe they're getting some money from the immigrants. We don't know, if money's changed hands. But they weren't, trying to cover this thing up. They weren't, they were just living their lives in Springfield. Then some woman's cat goes missing. She tells a friend. Her friend posts it on Facebook. Then that piece of shit, Laura Loomer, and these other people retweet it. And because they all have an agenda. They're all Trumpers. who want to say the Democrats, again, the first people that came to Haiti, the first Haitians that came into Springfield was in 2018 when Trump was president. They don't say that, right? So they want to paint immigrants as pet-eating people. That's their desire, right? They have an agenda. And so they become less believable because, Trump's a proven liar. I just saw something on Facebook. I should have screenshotted it or copied it, but it was a meme that said, how does somebody go, 80 years or so, 75 years or whatever it is for Trump? How does somebody go for 70 years and commit no crimes, and then he commits 92 felonies? And the reason is, they're trying to call bullshit on that, but the reason is Trump was committing crimes all along, which we'll get into when we find out about his past more. Like, Trump was always committing crimes. Trump was, he was going bankrupt. He was doing things immoral, illegally. He was throwing people under the bus. He's always been a piece of shit. It's just the media loved him. And he wasn't running for president. Like, he's turned into a villain. He used to be in the category of people who get away with things. Rich men who get away with things. He paid off politicians and he paid off whatever it was, right? He was a citizen with privilege and celebrity, and he got away with a bunch of shit, right? But he's always been that guy, and he never pretended not to be, right? He even bragged about it, talked about it. A guy who hires a fixer is somebody who's doing things that are legally, right? Doing things that are legal. But anyways, Trump and his people have an agenda, which is to make Kamala Harris and the Democrats look bad on immigration, and the Haitians are just the tool that they're using. They're getting collateral damage, and Springfield, Ohio is getting collateral damage. Where these people that were there, they're just living in Springfield, and they may or may not have a problem with the Haitian immigrants being there, like maybe they don't love it, but they're not seeing their dogs and cats being eaten, barbecued in voodoo rituals, because that's just made up shit, right? So Jake Tapper's ends up being more credible. That's the sad part about this. The politicians in Springfield become more credible. The Republican politicians in Springfield, a Republican mayor, a Republican governor, and Trump is throwing the whole city under the bus and the Haitian population and spreading freaking, slandering them. And for something that's not even going to work for him. It's already back fucking firing. He's just so impulsive and sucky, and he never say, oh, that was a mistake. Never apologizes. He does damage, and he just, he just sucks. He just sucks as a person. Anyways, let's move on here.
To mind Ruby Bridges during desegregation, right? Needing protection to go into a school, the threat to little kids of color. Is this what we need to accept as the norm now?
So, this is the way that MSNBC and them are going to push this. Where this is, it's race baiting and ethnic cleansing, which it is to some extent. And so, Trump has opened the door for all this shit by just blatantly lying and taking, no responsibility for the shit he says, right? And all the truthers that are pushing these rumors, Alex Jones-like pieces of shit out there, are destroying any credibility that we have in alternative media because they won't fact check and, look at the fact that Trump is a lying piece of shit. If you start with Trump being a lying piece of shit, it's easy. It's easy. He's a lying piece of shit, right? Trump is a lying piece of shit. And I can't say it enough. And so everything he says, he's the worst kind of irresponsible piece of shit. And so everything he says is suspect. And if you start, pushing his ideas without fact checking them, the fake shootings and all this other bullshit, because you're freaked out about the reality that America can't be saved, and that we got two worthless people. Not worthless, the worst kind of people. Two people that just make things worse. People who are making the world a worse place. And Trump more so because his position is much more magnified. Kamala Harris will never be as big as Trump, right? Kamala Harris will never be as hated as Trump or as loved as Trump. She'll never be Trump. She only exists because Trump exists, right? She exists in Trump's wake. His wake of fucking evil that she's basking in. Her evil is being supported by Trump's wake. It's bringing her along. And that's, that's the definition of America right now. Okay, so let me expand on what I was saying here. And then I'm going to get to the next segment. There's a book that, to me, is total believable about Trump because there's things I knew about Trump before he even won the election, things I knew about him from watching The Apprentice, and, all these things. I'll talk about that in a moment. There's been so many books about Trump, and I don't pay any attention to them. But then you got to wonder why there have been so many books about Trump. And so, like I said before, the one thing the truth community did was it exposed that the official story was bullshit, right? And so all of us right-wing truthers, left-wing truthers, they're not really truthers, left-wing and right-wing truthers, because they haven't changed their belief systems. I've said this before over and over again. But the QBs and the woke people and the far right and the far left, and then all of us in between, we don't accept or believe in the mainstream media and in the politicians. And that's probably about 60% of the people. But there are some of us who have come to see that everything that they say is a lie in one way or another. They don't lie all the time. They only lie when they have to. Because sometimes the truth is it supports their worldview. But they can cherry pick the truth, right? So, again, even when they're telling the truth, there's things that they're not saying. Or it exists in a reality that doesn't exist, right? It's part of an overall lie, right? The whole, everything about our system. And so it became kind of a, for primitive minds and the Alex Jones people, it became every time the mainstream media and politicians said something, it was a lie, and that isn't true, right? Because they don't have to lie all the time. Like it's truth sprinkled with lies or truth without the full story, or it's just much more nuanced than that, right? It's not as simplistic as that. Then the alternative stories came out, and then people just accepted them. I accepted them. The big event in 2001 was the first part of this, and that was back when you could just post anything, and there wasn't community guidelines. There wasn't censoring. No one was censoring what was going on. And it was just an economic boom. And they didn't care what we were saying here. They maybe saw it being problematic later on, but they didn't care. Not just the social media platforms, but mainstream media and politicians. But then mainstream media realized nobody was watching their shit anymore, and they were getting their news from social media. And so they started to cry about it. And politicians realized in 2016 that social media had a big impact on the Hillary Clinton losing. Because all the pundits, all the news people, all the experts said, no, Hillary Clinton's going to win. And they said, there's no chance that Donald Trump will win. And you guys should not vote for Donald Trump. He's not a legitimate candidate. And yet Hillary Clinton got, pretty trounced by Trump, in ways that nobody saw, the mainstream media people. And so then the term fake news was born. And the Democrats were saying everything on social media was fake news, but then Trump hijacked the term and said that CNN and all these people were fake news, right? And both of them were, pretty much right, because it's all became fake news. And that's the issue here. Because all these things that were being said in the truth community, because there was no, people weren't investigated journalists. You had people who weren't trained to think, in a way for themselves. They weren't trained to do research. They were learning kind of on the job. But mostly what the truth community became was people regurgitating other people's lies and misinformation. And so there's all these narratives that came out. I just exposed on my other channel, my Apocalypse Now channel, the thermite hoax, right? I believed in thermite until I looked into it and I knew that it was 100% not that. And then people brought up this Judy Wood person, it's just stupid shit, right? My explanation is the most reasonable. I have some level of proof. You can go watch that video. But, in terms of all these things that are said in the truth community, most of them are bullshit too, right? Because, a lot of people are right-wing people. A lot of it's wishful thinking. People who are voluntarily lying. But then there's all the disinformation agents. So the powers that be realized if we were going to investigate them and we were going to come up with our own version of their story, they were going to hire people to put out disinformation. And so they hired shills. The government put in shills. There's just all these people out there who are just all saying, whatever they want. And they don't have to, it's worked in their favor now because they no longer have to be accountable for what they say. Like they'd be liable for bullshit, of that magnitude in the mainstream media. They couldn't get mainstream papers and people to go along with it. People with editors. I mean, these institutions had some standards. I mean, they still have some standards, I guess, now. But the social media is wild, wild west. You can say anything, especially if you're being endorsed by the intelligence community and by the corporations. You can make up any bullshit and put it out there. And so the sum total of that is you can't trust anything that's being said. It's all fucking lies, right? It's really hard to get to the truth unless you're actually there or whatever it is. I mean, you can see patterns like I do. Like some people are better at than others, but it's exhausting, and you're never going to get the 100% proof where you can claim factually that something's this or something's that, right? Because everybody's fucking lying all the time. And so this was worked out for Trump because Trump has put out there that the mainstream media can't be trusted. They're compromised. They're fake news, and that all the attacks against him are, based in that fake news, and that isn't true either, right? I've covered the mainstream media mock them for they're blaming Trump for everything. But Trump is responsible for a lot of it because he's the nexus. He's the center of the evil that they're using as a puppet. He's their tool, their instrument for pushing their agenda. And you take Trump out of the equation, they can't get away with half the shit that they're getting away with, right? And so, Trump is he's trying to be the anti-mainstream media, but he's not because he's always been a bullshitter and a liar. And he has no problems lying to the people that support him and ultimately stabbing you in the fucking back or face or wherever you can, because that's what he always does, because he's a weak piece of shit, right? He's the worst fucking person, like, for all this stuff. Like, he's just got no standards, morals, and ethics, and he's just so selfish. Like, he's the epitome of selfishness. And all the truthers that are carrying water for him, they're part of the problem now. So the truth community has been, basically, I mean, it's pretty much worse now than mainstream media. So I'm going to show you that as we go through these two stories. These people wrote a book about Trump before he was president, and it's called Lucky Loser, because the guy is a fucking loser, right?
Also new tonight, Trump squanders $15 million. This is money loaned to him from his dad, who bailed him out. Two Pulitzer Prize-winning reporters from the New York Times uncovering a trove of secret business records and tax returns, which show...
Look at his evil frickin' dad here. Look at this motherfucker here. Like, did he just come off straight off the villain boat? Like, is he like a Disney villain? Like, a cartoon come to life? Look at this motherfucker, right?
Ever before known reasons why Trump is so sensitive...
Look at this.
...to questions about his wealth.
I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a...
This is all lies, right? I mean, these are an exaggeration, just this whole thing that she says. I mean, I showed you Rudy Giuliani mocking her. She's trying to paint a narrative that doesn't exist, right? She grew up in a college town and all blah, 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 blah. But then she drops this because she's trying to bait Trump.
As a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed...
It became $40 million later.
Bankruptcy 6 times.
I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that.
Yeah. So Trump, some reporter published something that he was not a billionaire. This was like one of the mainstream media, and Trump went off and sued him, right? Because Trump was pissed, and like his wealth and questioning the legitimacy of his wealth is something that Trump is really, he just won't tolerate. And then he lost the lawsuit because he couldn't prove he was a billionaire because he exaggerates everything. He's a bullshitter, right? He lies about everything. Like Trump has always been a liar, and part of his fraud has been that he's richer than he actually is, and he's more successful than he actually is. And, you know, I know a lot about this, like some of the stuff I saw in The Apprentice and things I heard about Trump, but I knew it was smoke and mirrors, and we know he's a bullshitter now. Like just the way he's handled the cats and dogs thing. You know, with social media rumors on social media, unproven rumors, and he brought him out and announced them in a debate before 70 million people, and are demonizing a bunch of people he won't even name them as Haitians, right? And so this is who Trump is. He's a bullshitter. He's a flim-flam artist. And he's bullshitted his people and the American people, but the people, his supporters, and exaggerated. He's become like somebody that they believe as a truther, and he's clearly not, right? He's the opposite of that.
Russ Putner and Suzanne Craig are now out front. They are the authors of Lucky.
So I saw this was on CNN. My wife and I were about to, I made tacos. My wife's favorite thing I make is tacos. And I wanted to show my wife this woman's haircut. I'm like, holy fuck, right? But I start hearing her talking, and I'm like, oh, she's actually, you know, believable. And she told this story. I don't think it's going to come up here. I didn't think about copying it like I should have like recorded it, but I just tell you the story. It was on MSNBC, and it was the tail end of the interview. And she said that Robin Leach from Lifestyle and the Rich and Famous used to go and see Trump. You know, Trump with his gold toilet, Trump with his, you know, all the things that he has, the gaudiness of Trump, right? And so Robin Leach, it was this English guy, this very flamboyant English guy, that would go out and find rich people who lived gaudy lives and show you their lifestyle and things that they did. And Trump was on the show a number of times. And the producer of his show was with Trump's staff, and they got the producer to say this. These are all quotes by people. These are things that have been vetted, you know, and Trump isn't going to sue them because even though this is bad for him, I mean, he might sue him, but he's going to lose because, like, this is all stuff that they vetted. And stories that I've heard. And the people came up to Robin Leach's producer and said, he isn't paying us, you know. Like the staff and people, they weren't being paid by this motherfucker. Which he didn't pay his vendors. He went bankrupt 6 fucking times, right? People who go bankrupt don't pay their bills. Trump couldn't pay his bills, massive bills, 6 separate times. He was supposed to be, when a billionaire goes bankrupt, that's millions of dollars in money that he's owed that he's not paying to people. Like people are losing money because Trump is an irresponsible lying piece of shit, right? And so, you know, I totally believe these stories. Like I told you, I'll go back to that. Let's watch this here.
Loser, how Donald Trump squandered his father's fortune and created the illusion of success, which is out today. And I'm excited to have a copy of it right now. So, all right, I've spoken to each of you over the years. This is an incredible reported piece of work that you are now releasing for everyone to see. So you revealed Trump's father, Fred, repeatedly bankrolled his son. And we know, he had been given money, but you guys document all the different ways it happened, including a $15 million loan, Ross, that you revealed Donald Trump never paid back. $15 million. Tell me more.
So that was to help him with the construction of Trump Tower. Every week, as he built up construction costs, he was having problems paying his bills. And so his father was loaning him money over that period of time. And then that just stayed. He was supposed to pay interest back on that. He never did that. But then years later, when Donald Trump started another building called Trump Plaza, they rolled that money into an investment into Trump Plaza. Well, Trump Plaza was really ill-advised. It was built right as the real estate market was collapsing. Everyone around him thought, this is not a good idea. You're not going to make your money back.
Yeah, this was known, right? I knew about this years ago. That he made this bad decision to build Trump Plaza, right? And this is one of the first times he had to go bankrupt.
He went forth. Guess what? He didn't make his money back. And his father declared on his tax returns a $15 million loss to write off other income that his father made. His father made a lot of money. So that was actually an illegal tax return. They somehow converted that $15 million worth of loan, Trump Tower, into a tax loss that reduced his income on another bill.
Okay, so that's defrauding the federal government. I think that's pretty much a felony. It's a lot of money. And it shows how much money his dad was actually making. and how much of a loser Trump was. Like Trump had, advantages that the rest of us don't, and he just made bad decisions, right? So I went to this barber when I was in Vegas. My family and I were in India, and I came back to Henderson, and Henderson's right next to. It's really it's like a suburb of Vegas, and so there was this barber, and this guy was Republican through and through. He watched Fox News. He had a TV in his barber shop, old time Republican guy, and he talked to everybody. He was just one of these people. And it was when Trump was running. So I was in Vegas when Trump won the election. And Trump was on TV, and this guy was, I'm pretty sure, going to vote for him, but he said to me, I knew a bunch of vendors, people who contracted with Trump, and he stiffed them because Trump has, a property, the Trump, whatever it is, casino, whatever, hotel that's there in Vegas. And he said he wasn't paying people. And so this guy, barbers know everything. Like, they just, this was to me a fact. Because this guy had no reason to tell me that. He wasn't certainly a Hillary Clinton fan. He watched Fox News, right? And he was down on Trump because of stories he heard from people that Trump stiffed it. And this is, Trump has been known for this, right? The art of the deal. He screwed people over and over again. He didn't pay people, hardworking people, what he owed them. Because he's a piece of shit, right? He's always been a piece of shit. But also because he's broke and he doesn't have the money, right? Like he doesn't have as much money as people think because he's, he has all this gaudy stuff, but he's doing it on credit, and it's illusionary.
All right, so that's fraud on one level. On another very basic level, that's Trump taking $15 million and turning it into zero, which is another thing that goes totally against the entire ethos and brand that he's put out there, Suzanne. What I found fascinating about this as well, though, is, you lay all this out, but you also talk about how, he talks about he's this real estate mogul. Right. And that's actually how, he gets The Apprentice. And yet it turns out from your reporting, The Apprentice, that you got tax returns, you got confidential business documents that no one's ever seen before that reveal he got, $400 million from The Apprentice. That could be his biggest success.
It's incredible. When we look at the title is Lucky Loser because he lived a life, he was born lucky. He was born into a wealthy family, and he also had a father with connections in the real estate industry. He went into it, and
like, this dude is believable.
Inherited hundreds of millions of dollars from his father. So that's just luck right there. But the second piece of luck that we write a lot about in the book is The Apprentice. It's a meeting of Mark Burnett. And at the time that he met Mark Burnett was looking to do another reality TV show. He'd just come off Survivor. It was red hot. And he was looking to do sort of the Survivor in the city, and he wanted to do The Apprentice. And Donald Trump was having a lot of things going wrong financially. The casinos is one of them. He was not doing well. And Mark Burnett actually looked at some moguls that were quite wealthy, including people like Jack Welch. They didn't want to do it. And the people that he looked at either didn't want to do it because they didn't have time, or they were, not photogenic, telegenic, but there was Donald Trump. So he was sort of not doing well, and Mark Burnett tapped him for the show. And that show, you think you're a host of a reality TV show, how could you make so much money? But the genius of it was Mark Burnett had negotiated with NBC that NBC could keep all the money from the commercials, but that Mark Burnett would get the product placements money. So there's a Coke can on the table. If Coca-Cola has paid for that, Mark Burnett gets the money. And The Apprentice was this runaway hit with Madison Avenue, and all of these corporations were paying huge monies, and we got huge money.
So part of this, if you guys remember how The Apprentice worked, they would get sponsored by corporations to do projects. And so the whole show would be a advertisement for those products, right? And Trump pushed his own products. Like Trump, like one of it was water he did, and he said, the water industry is a $25 billion industry, and I want a part of it. So he put out Trump's water, like, of course, when Trump has all these failed things, right? But they were pushing all this stuff, right? Trump got his own brands on there, and then, of course, these corporations. And NBC, which didn't realize what the show was going to be, was making money off the show itself. But Mark Burnett and Trump were splitting the product placement money, which was, for Trump, over $400 million, right? At a time like he was failing as a businessman, and he was supposed to be this great businessman that these people were apprenticing with, but the reality show itself was Trump's biggest asset. it shows you how like completely effed up this thing is and how sucky Trump is. And this is, again, I mean, whatever documentation they have, it's totally believable from everything we know about Trump, because he's a lying piece of shit, right? And he just steps into shit all the time, like like I mean, the guy's, he just lucks out. Like, this is a lucky thing that he gets, right? Like all these things that just fall into his lap. I mean, the presidency kind of fell into his lap.
Money we got, the financials, not just of Donald Trump's tax returns, but of the show, they were paying $2, $3, $4 million an episode to be on that show, and Donald Trump got half of all of that. So he got that rush, and then he got all these licensing deals after it. It was incredible how much money he
And it's
made
incredible.
for
So at
that.
a moment of failure when things are going to go down, and then all of a sudden this happens, and it becomes, I mean, more than $400 million. I mean, it's impossible to truly kind of comprehend that, what that happened. Russ, and yet as part of this, the big event, right, on The Apprentice was who's going to get fired, right? So people tune in to see who's going to get fired each week. It was moments like this.
David, on the complete opposite side, I don't see that you stepped up at all.
David, I'm going to ask you to take the down elevator. You're fired.
Jason, this is a tough one. You're fired.
Heidi, you're fired. In this case, Omarosa has to go. You're fired.
So, Russ, you learned that Trump was so unpredictable with who he was going to fire, and that it was not based on sort of how they performed. They were tasks. I remember judging some of these tasks. It was supposed to be who did the worst on the tasks.
I think she was part of that show, right? There's another one of his contestants worked for MSNBC or some of this stuff, right? She became a reporter for, like some of these people went on that were on The Apprentice, became, famous people in their own right in whatever they were doing, right?
But that he sometimes would be so bad about his choice about who he fired that they'd have to go back and edit it to make that person look bad.
That's exactly right. The first face you showed there was David Gould, who had an MBA. He was a medical doctor, I think, as well. A really amazing guy who a lot of the producers thought was going to win that whole series. That season, he would just run the whole gauntlet. But Trump fired him on like the very first episode. And people in the control room, the producers were like, oh my God, what do we do with this now? But they had this other moment, because it was entertainment, not reality, that, oh my gosh, this is really great, because this is so unpredictable. So that quality that was really bad for him in business was solid gold on this show. And then they...
So this is, again, Trump not evaluating people. Trump saying he fired people in his, Kamala Harris didn't fire anybody, but he did. But the reality is, I watched the show, and there were times where I'm like, Trump isn't watching the segments, right? Because what they were showing you was not, did not equate to Trump firing the people. Like they do a task, and they would show you what happened on the task, and there were clear people that were candidates to be fired, and sometimes Trump wouldn't fire the right people, and it was like he was just being brought in there, and in the boardroom, like some people told him some minimal information, and he would make these rash decisions. And I guess it appealed to people because they thought Trump was actually somebody who was good at business. But it was entertaining because Trump didn't know what the fuck he was doing, right? I think it was the second season there was this guy. It was the first or second episode. And this guy Trump loved. And Trump said he was like one of the best guys. And he was like he was the task manager, and they lost. And he went in to the boardroom, but he had already gotten immunity. Like some way that he got immunity. I forgot what, from being fired. Like some Trump had, gave him this thing. And the guy went into the boardroom and he said, I don't even need the immunity. I'm still going to dust these two other people. And Trump got very upset at him. He goes, why would you give up? It might have been that guy. I'm not sure. I think it was a different guy, bald guy. And he said, why would you give up immunity? You had this gift. I gave you this gift. It's just really stupid. And he fires the guy, even though the other two people were clearly the people, one of them, both of them maybe should have been fired, right? Because Trump is stupid like that, right? Like this is totally consistent with everything we know about Trump. He's impulsive. He thinks whatever he does is, divine in some way, and he's divinely protected, and he's just the golden child, and everything he says is great, but everything everyone else says about him is slander, and he can do whatever he wants. He's just this like little Lord Fauntleroy, right? This little, this little prince, and no one can criticize him, but he can criticize everybody. He's just the best. and he's a piece of shit, right? He sucks at business. Like, the one thing he had going for him was he was good at business.
They would just re-edit everything to make the David Goulds look.
Back to the title, Lucky Loser. All right, Suzanne, Trump would call reporters. This is something I've been just fascinated by over the years, this kind of alter ego bizarre thing, when he would pretend to be a guy named John Barron.
Right.
And he would do it when he was talking about affairs or about, how rich he was, because he wanted people to think he was richer than he was and get put on the Forbes list and all of these things. He'd pretend to be this guy, John Barron. Here's one conversation that was recorded.
Okay, what's your first name, by the way? John Barron. Most of the assets have been consolidated to Mr. Trump, because you have down Fred Trump. And I'd like to talk to you off the record if I can, just to make your thing easier. I think you can really use Donald Trump now, and you can just consolidate. I think last year somebody showed me the article, and I think you had 200 and 200. And really, it's been pretty well consolidated now for the most part.
I mean, he didn't even try to use a voice changer, which a 6-year-old would try to do. It's
He
very
even
clearly
named his
Donald
son
Trump.
Barron. So I don't even want to go there.
Oh
but,
my gosh.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. But you.
Like, that was totally Trump. Like, just like Trump was opening, fake fake Instagram accounts before there was Instagram. These people have, these fake accounts. I forget what they call them, but people have multiple accounts, and they go and they prop themselves up and defend themselves using fake accounts. Kevin Durant, the basketball player, got burner accounts, right? Like, Trump had burner accounts before social media even existed, right? He was putting out disinformation and under a pseudonym.
You discovered a long and bizarre history to John Barron. And by the way, the Barron Trump may be part of it too, but the history is something else.
Well, we've always sort of wondered why John Barron, and we found out in the book that when Donald Trump was young and he just had first started working with Fred, we went back to old newspapers and we found the name John Barron, where there was classified ads where he would be selling things, and it went back to the exchange number for the Trump house. So it was Donald, he was using it as a pseudonym either because they wanted to hire a maintenance worker, and in one sad case we actually found an ad for his brother who died when he was 42, Fred Trump, his boat that the family they were selling, and it was John Barron was selling it. So it was just this crazy origin story of John Barron that we've always wondered where it came from, and we found it in the classified ads of newspapers, old newspapers in New York.
I mean, it is really incredible, and that.
Okay, so this is the first interview.
That was
Trump's Atlantic City building.
the demolition of the Trump Plaza Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City back in 2021. And if you know anything about the story of Trump and his casino businesses, I bet you know that the story does not end well. Multiple Trump casinos ended up filing for bankruptcy. That much I bet you already knew, but you probably don't know this.
How do you fucking have casinos that file for bankruptcy? Like, it's free income. I mean, casinos, gambling money, Vegas, if you go to Vegas and you go to the surrounding area, like, they have the best schools, they have the best everything, right? They have, like, just because of gambling money, best parks. I mean, they're cash rich. People come on their vacation and give you them money. And the casino money goes throughout the community. Like, casino money and tourist money are the best monies, right? Like, it's just people giving you their hard-earned cash as they're on vacation. And the restaurant business is all the things that exist there. And the craziness of the casinos, right? And so it's just nuts there. We went to the Vegas once. Like, I don't gamble. It was right after my wife and I were getting together. And I think my channel had just gone past 100,000 subscribers or something. And so we went to Vegas, and my wife had been there before. And we went to the Bellagio, we went to these various places. I was in Utah at the time. A couple hours away from Vegas, we drove down there. And, we went to the aquarium and, one of the hotels. I mean, these hotels have aquariums, like, they have these major things there, right? Crazy restaurants, I mean, and all the shows and all the things. Like, we didn't even see any of that. But we just went to, I'd never been, we just drove by Vegas. I had never been to the Strip. And it's just crazy money, right? Like, how do you lose fucking money at a casino?
Story. The year was 1982, the first year that Forbes magazine published its list of the 400 richest Americans. Donald Trump made the list, claiming he was worth $100 million. But at the time, Trump was really only worth about $5 million, and he was also hemorrhaging cash. But Donald Trump had a plan. That year, Trump got a license from the New Jersey Casino Control Commission to operate a casino in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And Trump found an investor to help him finance the project. Holiday Inn, which owned the casino chain Harrah's, would give Trump $50 million in cash to build the casino, and then Trump and Harrah's would split the profits. Trump had to just prove one little thing first. Here is how the New York Times investigative reporters Suzanne Craig and Russ Buettner tell the story in their new book, Lucky Loser. Donald was on the verge of a great deal, one that would also get him out of a bind. Before leaving, the CEO of Holiday Inn told Donald that his board of directors would want to see with their own eyes that construction on the casino was underway, evidence that this young builder could make this happen. Donald kept the truth to himself. He did not have things underway because he did not have the money. So he directed his construction supervisor to hire every piece of earth-moving machinery he could find. The day the Holiday Inn board visited the site, dozens of bulldozers and backhoes pointlessly pushed mounds of earth around the 2.6-acre site in an elaborate ruse with no purpose other than to fool Trump's new business partner. Afterwards, Trump...
So tell me that doesn't sound like Trump. So tell me that doesn't sound like something Trump would do. And his followers love that shit. Like, they think it's great.
Introduced himself to one of the Holiday Inn executives with the line he would never forget. I think I'm probably the most successful person my age in the United States. That was how...
Again, you know, we hire the best people. Like Trump says, we hire the best people, and then they fires them, and then they write books about them. Trump's like, yeah, they wrote so many books about me because I fire them, and they're disgruntled because they sucked. They can't all suck, right? I mean, these are people, you know, they're all writing books about him because they can't believe what an ass clown he is. And he's always been this way. And you could see it on The Apprentice. I mean, go back and watch The Apprentice. He looks like a fucking boob, right? Like part of the attraction of the show was what a dope he was.
How Trump started the Trump Plaza Hotel and Casino. He bluffed his way into it. Trump created the myth of himself as a successful businessman, and he sold it to the public so that he could then sell it to his business partners. And for a long time, that myth really worked out.
There is a new billionaire in town. Trump's the name. Donald Trump is a major deal maker, a swashbuckler.
A swashbuckler.
Today, a lot of this country still believes that myth, and Donald Trump is still cashing in on it. It is not.
I mean, why did he have to go bankrupt 6 times? Like all these other famous rich people, like, did they go bankrupt at all, ever? The real successful people? Because he was always doing it on credit. And he lived extravagant lifestyle because he was trying to show you things, you know, show you his opulence. I mean, it was gaudy stuff, right? He went to his apartment on The Apprentice. Show you things that, you know, he's buying on credit or loaned or whatever he's doing. I mean, he's good at flim-flamming and selling, and he's an illusionist, right? He's like a rapper who goes out and raps and you know, gets a bunch of money from the record company, cash that's not his, and shows you fistfuls of dollars, you know, fistfuls of $100 bills that he has to give back to the record company at the end of the day, right? Because he doesn't really have the money. And he's wearing fake gold chains and shit like that, right? He's like a rapper who's not rich but pretends so, you know, rents a Lamborghini for a day or whatever, borrows something, this shit, and goes out, gets a bunch of hoes. You know, like, it's just, they make themselves look rich, right? That's what he is. He's a fake rapper.
Just Donald Trump, the Republican nominee, who is having a busy week. Donald Trump, the businessman, also has a lot on his plate. There's his new cryptocurrency venture and the possible sale of his shares of Trump Media, the parent.
Okay, so you get the idea here, right? But here's the people here. Let's hear some stories.
Businessman also has a lot on his plate. There's his new cryptocurrency venture and the possible sale of his shares of Trump Media, the parent company of Truth Social. But as New York Times...
Somehow that's worth $2 billion. And I said that he should have done that while he was president. He should have had Truth Social to go to get his side of the story out when he got deplatformed. but he failed to do that because the mainstream media wasn't saying wasn't carrying his water for him. And it's just, he's a disaster.
Reporters Suzanne Craig and Russ Buettner point out in their deeply reported new book about Trump's wealth, Trump's successes aren't the result of shrewd business acumen. They are the result of many, many, many lucky breaks. Good things happened to Donald Trump. He did not earn most of those good things. He was born. He was discovered by a revolutionary television producer, and he was pushed into an investment against his will. And from those 3 bits of good luck came the equivalent today of more than $1.5 billion.
This is Trump in his presidency. I don't think he was ever serious about being president, but, he was good at bullshitting and he was different. And he just, the Republicans fell in love with him. This is a part of Trump that I find I like, that he's a bozo that somehow is able to do these things. That's his comic genius. It's just he sucks so bad now, right?
That sort of tailwind could paper over a litany of failure and still fund a lavish life. And there is no evidence that in 50 years of labor, Donald Trump added to his lucky fortunes. He would have been better off betting on the stock market than on himself. Joining me now are Pulitzer Prize-winning New York Times investigative reporters Suzanne Craig and Russ Buettner, authors of Lucky Loser, How Donald Trump Squandered His Father's Fortune and Created the Illusion of Success. Congratulations, guys, on this exhaustive, really delicious read. I shouldn't say it like that, but filled with a lot of new reporting and some deeply informative reporting on stories we sort of knew. I want to talk first about, because the word father is in the subhead of the book. Maybe Suzanne, you can start first. Just the relationship between Donald Trump and Fred Trump was more beneficial to Donald Trump than I think people even imagine, right? He's prone these days to calling him his Brooklyn builder of a dad, but the reality is he's the money man behind Donald Trump's entire fortune. Can you talk a little bit about it?
I think we'd all, in some ways, like to have a father like
in some ways, in all ways, I think.
Especially with hair like that, you'd fit right in. You're the son he never
Throwing millions of dollars.
A lot of money, yeah. Donald Trump definitely benefited from his relationship with his father when it comes to the finances. He was born into an incredibly wealthy family. I just remember one of the stories that I was thinking about the family, and they grew up in Queens, and all the kids in the neighborhood used to marvel at the fact they had an electric door opener for the garage. They had everything. They had the first color TV, and he really, he grew up very, very wealthy, and he inherited a lot of money. And we've written about the fact that he inherited it, and it was enhanced by tax fraud. But that was really the first hugely lucky break of his life. And he has spent so much time talking about how his father, he's really a small-time guy, nothing to look at here.
Never could have made the fortune that Trump did.
No.
The guy's throwing his own dad under the bus, right? To maximize his greatness. Because he doesn't want people to know that he had all these advantages and he's a piece of shit loser. That's totally Trump, right? Trump, it's provable. These people say they have, and I believe it because of things I've said, right? But they're saying they have the documentation of Fred Trump's wealth, right? And that they are, they're disputing the story that Trump said that the guy wasn't giving him all this money. That Trump didn't inherit shit, right?
Small-time guy gave him a very small loan, and Donald Trump did it all on himself. It was as if he was robbed of a hard scrabble story, and he had to come up with one. It's incredible just how he has gone out of his way. First, we see in his early business career that he appropriates his father's wealth. We see news stories where he's...
the majority of times that you have this with kings and you have this with successful billionaires to show the succession. It was a good example of this. You have these people that grow up with wealth, and the kids always just suck. They don't have what they're never going to be as good as their father or their mom or whoever the person is that made it. They're just not as good. Second generation, third generation, something like Steph Curry's is a rarity. Where Steph Curry is much better than his dad, Del Curry, right? Where the son is better than the father. Father was a breakthrough NBA player, but his son is a star. You very seldom see that where, these great men and great women, people who are, famous people, that their kids excel past what they did. Usually they're dopes, boneheads, and they just run the business into the ground, right?
He says he's worth $200 million. It grows to $1 billion. He's appropriating his father's wealth. And then he spends a lot of his life diminishing his father's accomplishments. Fred Trump, Donald became a black hole for Fred's money eventually.
And Fred Trump
It's like he becomes a black hole for these things. Like all the things you see with Trump now, they just didn't start, right? He didn't just start lying and, being a piece of shit. Like he's been a piece of shit his whole life, right?
This smack talking from his chosen son, right? Not only does he single out Trump, of the 5 Trump kids, Donald is the chosen one, and he allows Trump, his son, to basically diminish his legacy and suggest that he's some kind of mastermind when really the inverse is true, is it not?
It really is, and I think that's one of the most remarkable parts of this as a long story, right? That's a thread that weaves through decades.
Okay, so you get the idea. Like, you can watch the rest of this if you want. You buy the fucking book, I don't know. But, I mean, all these things this is who Trump is. Trump's a lying piece of shit who doesn't have any sort of moral compass. And, he's just not a good person. And he's just, a cancer to everybody around him. He has no loyalty. He throws people under the bus, people who have been loyal to him. And he doesn't care about anything or anybody but himself. And his image, right? Like his image is everything. Like who he is and how he's defined, how people look at him. He doesn't want to lose face. And he's never been that guy. He's a fraud. Trump's a fraud. Okay, so I ended up listening to the rest of this video. It's worth watching here.
This thing. Fred has done everything pretty much he's broken rules, but as a businessman, he follows very strict procedures. He always estimates correctly.
That's Fred Trump, Trump's dad.
What his revenue is going to be. He doesn't spend more than that's going to take in. All his projects make money.
Okay, you see where this is Donald's mom.
Very careful. Donald is just the opposite sort. But when Donald first arrives in about 1968, he immediately starts taking over the business. He becomes the public spokesperson for it. This fellow, John Barron, becomes the public spokesperson for it. Right. And Donald starts announcing that they're building projects all over the place, that they're going to build a new seaport in Lower Manhattan. They're going to build a convention center in D.C. They're going to do all these things. And it's all smoke and mirrors. None of it happens. Fred's never done that in his life, but he goes along for the ride. And when Donald does get a project up, when he gets his first sort of building up, Donald starts telling the world that he has fully taken over the finances of his father's company. He has not. But Fred goes along with that and allows Donald to say, and echoes it, that Donald has surpassed me, when Donald literally had one building up of his own. It's really just...
So the thing about it is, Donald Trump's was always celebrated by the media. Like they bought into everything that he said. Like Trump would appear on news programs all the time and be interviewed on, all the things he did in New York City, be interviewed by David Letterman, and everyone was celebrating him. Like everybody loved him. There was never any fact-checking of Donald Trump, right? This was back when there was more real media. And pretty much everything about Trump was positive. Like he had divorces, scandals, cheating on his wives, all these things. And yet Trump was celebrated by the business community. There was never any of this stuff that, there was, of course, things people complain about him that work for him, but there was no pushback, right? And Trump was, they loved him. The liberals loved him, and The Apprentice, rappers loved him. I mean, he was pretty well loved by various groups, not by right-wing Republicans. Like, that wasn't his audience. But the rest of these people, the people that now hate him, celebrated him. Many of the people that were on his show, Donnie Deutsch, is a regular. Donnie Douche, he's a regular on Morning Joe, right? And so none of these people called Trump out on all his bullshit, and there was plenty of it. Like, he was clearly that guy.
a remarkable relationship that's very central to what he was able to accomplish.
And setting in motion what would become a long career of diminishing people closest to him who support him and assuming that their loyalty is inviolable.
And casting them overboard when they're not loyal.
What is staggering to a lot of folks who remember Trump in the 80s and 90s is that even in the Apprentice years, it's like completely castles built. It's a paper tiger, right? The Apprentice offices or the offices that the Apprentice is going to film in are so shabby that they have to kind of use smoke and mirror. Can you talk a little bit about the stagecraft of pretending that Donald Trump is actually a successful businessman?
There was a lot of stagecraft involved when Mark Burnett showed up.
I always like this about Donald Trump. Like, he's a bullshitter. And, it's entertaining in various ways. And it was really entertaining that he won presidency because, I didn't know he was this bad of a businessman. I knew that he was, a lot of it was BS. Like, I knew about the bankruptcies. I knew about how he sued some guy who said he wasn't a billionaire and then couldn't prove he was a billionaire. So a lot of this stuff was fraudulent. Of course, I knew he couldn't pay his employees and he stiffed people. But he was just such a, over-the-top blowhard, and he was obviously lying and just disrespecting the presidency and tweeting at the middle of the night. And it was great because, the truth of the matter is politics is full of liars and scumbags, and they pretend it's this sacred, honorable, these places, and it's filled with scumbag people all selling off their access and their, all the stuff with Joe Biden and he did and his Hunter Biden. It's all people like that, right? And Trump monetized the shit out of his presidency. His, Ivanka and Jared Kushner walked away with $2 billion deal from the Saudi Arabians. I mean, it's just, it was entertaining to me until it wasn't, right? Until real shit happened, which was, he had the smoke and mirrors economy where he deregulated everything, and he let the banksters start selling their derivatives, which was, a short-term gain, which we now see, issues with. He's getting into crypto, which means whatever that would mean, right, in terms of crypto, because that's a smoke and mirrors type of, situation as well, right? It's just imaginary value. And so, Trump will get into all these pump and dump things, and it's all facade, right? He's the perfect person for a Ponzi scheme. He was running basically the Trump empire as a Ponzi scheme, and now the American government. And the thing about a guy like this is he's always going to run into his failure, his, consequences for his taking shortcuts and lying, and he never accepts those consequences. He never gets really consequence for these things, right? But America will, right?
The offices and his producers. They came in thinking that they were going to be casting a billionaire. And keep in mind, Donald Trump was the host of the show. He was the prize that all these contestants wanted. They were vying and they were scheming to work for. And the producers showed up and they found chipped furniture and they said the carpet smelled. They just said it was awful. So they ended up creating a whole nother area on the fourth floor of Trump Tower, partly for where the contestants would live, but the whole boardroom was fake. That was not Donald Trump's boardroom.
Of course it was. You think he had a throne in his regular boardroom where his son would sit on one side and his daughter would sit on the other, and he would fire people, and the other people in his, these other people that work for him were all, like his subjects sitting there in a line defending themselves. It was obviously made for the show.
To recreate the whole thing.
The one thing that escapes me is, given the fact that this guy is hemorrhaging cash, he's going into deals, he's being bailed out by other investors who then are brought in. He continues to sell himself publicly as a businessman. Nobody pipes up. I mean, here we are looking today at the potential sale of Trump Social stock, which is largely built on Donald Trump's reputation and not at all on Truth Social's ability to generate revenue. Do you have a working thesis?
Yeah, so I guess the offering is going to be $2 billion, another $2 billion thing for that crappy knockoff of Twitter. Of course, he's getting in with Elon Musk now, and he'd be a competitor. But if he loses, that thing's going to be worth dick, right?
about how he's able to convince people over and over and over and over again.
I think there's a couple of things you have to give him credit for. He has this innate charisma that's followed him his entire life. In every aspect, every era of his life that we look into, there were people that were wooed by him. But also, he can be incredibly persuasive. And not just people who you think are easily persuaded. Throughout this book, there are people who are very smart and very accomplished who give him opportunities to do something when he hasn't done it before because he convinced them that he could. That has been a diminishing trend over the last 10 years, right? The things that once he got the money from The Apprentice, he decided again to undertake this effort to make himself look like a businessman by starting businesses. So he built a huge tower in Chicago. He secretly declared it completely worthless on his tax returns after he got it open. He remodeled the old post office into a hotel in D.C. He lost $7 to $10 million every year, and he had to sell that. He bought some golf courses in the UK. They all were sucking money, and he had to subsidize them with this money from his fame. So, he's not really convincing people much anymore, but now he's got this new audience,
It's amazing he loses money on real estate, and it's probably because he takes so much money out. You know, real estate is one of the things that just gains money. And he has these lush places, lavish places, but, you know, he has done relatively poorly, and that's, you know, backed up by all the bankruptcies he has to declare, right? You know, which I want to come back to. Let's let these guys wrap this up here.
Are his political followers. And I really think Truth Social is marketing to them.
Right. Yeah.
He's selling their persecution complex to them. And if you look at the site and read the people who invested, that's the thing that they grab onto, is we're under assault from all sides. We have to protect this site. We have to protect Donald Trump. He's our only chance.
Yeah, he was once monetizing the sort of Trump brand and this gilded 80s, 90s New York. Now he's monetizing grievance and rage. Really, you have to hand it to him in terms of the...
Yeah, he's good at that and manipulating people, which is the worst thing because, you know, they're desperate people here. Let's come back to that because Trumpers are desperate people. I've talked about this in the past. Now, this is, I don't know, this person, she wrote an article about Springfield College. Or maybe this is, whoever this is. The Morning Joe sucks. They're the worst, and they're worst about Trump. I mean, I mock them all the time. They're just the worst of the worst, bottom of the barrel. But they're telling the truth here about Trump, at least to some extent, because he's just out there so much, right? He's leveraging his, you know, the love that he was receiving from his people in a way. You know, if he's doing this, then of course the shootings are fake, right? If he's willing to lie about these people, he won't even say Haitians, right? And then this is what she had to say about it.
What is inside your reporting in terms of how this all came to be?
Well, we just heard the former president say that there are 32,000 migrants in Springfield, and you know, Governor DeWine and the mayor there says actually there are 15,000 Haitians that have moved there in the last 4 years.
Okay, so those people could both be lying. The mayor, I don't know why the mayor would there. Again, the mayor wasn't. He's just a mayor of a small, you know, depressed town that just has an influx of migrants, right? But you know, DeWine is a piece of shit. We knew about the way he handled the vax and all that stuff. But he's also a Republican. Now, you know, Donald Trump is certainly exaggerating because the most I had heard is 20,000. That was the number that was being thrown out. But now she's saying 15, which is, you know, again, that's quite significantly, that's, you know, reducing it by 1/4 of the amount of migrants that are in there. And, you know, Trump exaggerates everything. And then you got to have to wonder about, you know, what else is he exaggerated? Well, everything. He does it all the time, right?
Legally, almost all of them legally, because as we know, there's been a massive humanitarian crisis in Haiti. And actually, they've been welcomed to, what we found was they've been welcomed to Springfield with open arms. There was a real labor crunch like so many places during the pandemic. And so the Haitians have been, this community of Haitians have been in the small town of, you know, about 60,000 people. It has created a lot of pressure in the community, as it would with a lot of new people.
Okay, so again, if they are not illegal immigrants, and that's what he's saying, they're American citizens. Or whatever they are, they're at least here legally on a path towards citizenship. They came through immigration legally because of the humanitarian crisis. And they came through Florida, which is, you know, DeSantis, a Trump person, who is, you know, quite Republican, and he's, you know, anti-immigrant, but all these Haitians that came through there. And, it appears that they heard about these businesses. I mean, there must be a reason that they're there. And so if they weren't just shipped there, like in some, massive illegal type of, we're dumping a bunch of people in your town, if there are businesses and jobs waiting for them, remember all the jobs that people weren't doing during the pandemic. And so, again, there's no evidence supporting anything that Trump is saying. There's some people who were saying a few things on the internet and people found out about them. Those things turned out to be false or exaggerated or, weren't fact-checked about pets and shit like that. And we don't hear anything about the Haitians in Florida with these same problems. And so, this is a huge issue. This is a fucked up thing that's happened. I want to switch over to a voiceover. I just want to finish this here.
We just found no truth to the idea that they're there illegally or that there's any issues around the community, eating people's pets, which is really...
It was great the way she said that.
Really a very serious claim to make.
Okay, so that's frickin' Morning Joe. When Morning Joe becomes better, better version of the truth than when you're presenting it as Trump is. Let me switch over to a voiceover here. There's one more thing here, right?
The mayor of Springfield, Ohio, issued a proclamation today granting himself temporary emergency powers to address growing safety concerns in his city. That includes bomb threats to schools, hospitals, and other government offices tied to former President Trump's baseless claims about Haitian migrants stealing.
Okay, so this guy's a Republican mayor, and he is doing this. This is a legitimate political act on his part, like a governmental act, granting himself temporary emergency powers to address safety issues. Trump is making that play, using these people, using the town, using the Haitians, just for his own selfish purposes, because he never had to face anything, right? He's always run away from or been pampered in some way. He lucked out, and he hasn't faced the consequences of his bullshit, right? Everything just seems to go his way in these terms of these things. And whatever reason, the Supreme Court has overruled his one conviction and, all the things. He's just not somebody who gets consequenced. A lot of his behavior is criminal and certainly immoral. The guy should have been just dumped by America years ago. But he just finds a new way to reinvent himself. And again, to his credit, people will buy his bullshit, right? And so they show the Trump speech here that I told you about, I showed you. But this is a pastor here.
How is your community doing? How are they coping?
There are two sides to that. One is everyone's afraid. There are bomb threats continuing today. The Haitian community in particular are afraid. We were passing out little cards that said, we're glad that you're here. Christ loves you, and so do I. And I handed one to one teenager, and he just broke down sobbing. So that's one side. The other side that I'm hearing from Haitians is that the vast majority of people in Springfield are very kind to me. So there are kind of two realities unfolding.
What would you...
So just think about this, this is some reverend that they found, doesn't seem to be necessarily a Democrat, right? And, Trump is using this, targeted their town. He's going to go there. And he just makes things worse because he's a piece of shit, right? He's a piece of shit. He's always been a piece of shit. And piece of shits like this always do piece of shit like this kind of stuff. If you get a Kamala Harris presidency, it's Trump's fault. And whatever happens because of her presidency is Trump's fault. And the people that have backed Trump, who have, been given enough evidence. They're the most anti-truther people. Even they claim to be truthers. They're the most anti-truther people available. Because you have these desperate people who have been disenfranchised. And there are people in the past who were catered to, because it's mostly white people, some of them middle class, some of them upper middle class, right? People see their way of life disappearing. People feel like they're being targeted. Their values and the things that have been pushed by Hollywood, the Hollywood agenda. But it was really Trump that brought that in, right? Like the stuff with Caitlyn Jenner, that was happening when Trump was running for president. And it was, after he became president, a lot of these things were forced on the American people. But people see that their values and their way of life, make America great again. People who that phrase appeals to. People see that America isn't the way it was when they grew up, and they've lost their kids. Their kids are being indoctrinated by all the bullshit, all the liberal stuff. And Trump has been willing to lie to them in ways no other Republican was. He's willing to use their sorrow, their grief. I mean, he's despicable. Use, all you truthers that have gravitated to Trump, use your being disenfranchised. Like he's the guy who's going to stick up for you. He's not going to stick up for anybody. Trump expects you to serve him. He has this king complex, right? He thinks of himself as like a king, where you're all there to see. So he's the chosen one. He's the great one. He's the exalted one. He thinks he's the greatest person in the world. He thinks he's the best president in the history of America, right? Like the most important day is whether he gets elected this November 5th. He's compared himself to Abraham Lincoln and these other people. He told black people that he's been the best president for black people since Abraham Lincoln. There's all these, when Trump was roasted years ago, comedians came forward and said that, like, some of the jokes they had to cut were that he was a slumlord, he was prejudiced, and he wouldn't rent to black people. Like, that was, charges that were against him. There were the rumors and things. Again, nobody picked up on him and no one investigated him. And Trump was allowed to perpetrate these frauds one after another, go bankrupt, not pay his bills, and do it again. And then after years of failed businesses and smoke and mirrors and all these things, he takes these people who are freaked out and he tells them exactly what they want to hear. And he says things in a way, he's funny. He's got these, ways of demeaning people, name calling, and he verbalizes their anger and their frustration with all these people. And they, follow him in a cult-like fashion. I mean, he's a cult leader, where he himself said he could shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue and he wouldn't lose any supporters. And he loved that. It's just like all the stuff he's done since then. He's perpetrated these WWE fake shooting thing and all the stuff that he's done, the lies and all the things he's willing to tell people, the fight, and people going along with it and supporting it. Nobody calling him on his bullshit, right? I mean, none of these people calling him on his bullshit. And we have, as the truth community, as I said earlier, we have exposed mainstream media of being, liars and manipulators. And he's taken our work, like I said earlier, and he's used it to these people who don't believe in media anyway. So anytime that it's shown, like anytime anybody demonstrates that Trump is a piece of shit, he just says it's fake news and they're out to get to me because they want to destroy the country and they're just preventing me from doing it. They're coming after you and I'm just standing in their way. I mean, he says shit like that Trump would never stand in the way for you. You think like he was happy that people were standing up and looking for the shooter and were willing to, sacrifice themselves because they were willing to take a bullet for Trump, even though he was laying on the ground with 6 guys on top of him, which he seemed to relish. And then he got up and did the fight thing because it was all performative. But those people who weren't getting down, he was like, look how brave they were, right? Look at how they were looking for the shooter. They weren't, cowering and whatever. They were willing to take a bullet for Trump. And they didn't run and stampede and try to save themselves because they were just worried about him and they loved him so much. That's the kind of guy Trump is. He wants to be, loved in a way that he will never be able to reciprocate because he has nothing to give. He's a parasite and he's devoid of all of these things, right? And so, he's done a disservice to all of us. And now he's just got to go. I mean, I don't know how that's going to happen because he's just such an asset to the people who control the system. And even if Kamala Harris wins, Trump will still linger around for as many years as they can squeeze this stuff out of it. And eventually maybe they'll take him out in a way to provoke the people who are his supporters, who will rally around a guy who was just an absolute piece of shit, right? And, it's just bad times. And so it's just so evident. I mean, him invoking God and then throwing these communities under the bus and these people, these immigrants who have just suffered, brutally in Haiti. And he knows that they're Haitian. He won't even say that they're Haitian, right? Which is a fucked up thing. Like, because what he's saying is what he is saying is being echoed by all the dopes on social media who are saying, yeah, they do this. It's part of their voodoo rituals, right? All of a sudden you didn't care about Haitians 2 days ago or whatever, a week ago. But now that Trump has brought it up in the debate, whenever that was, 2 weeks ago now, I guess. It's been a while, whatever that was, when he brought it up in the debate, and all of a sudden you're talking about Haitians and their voodoo rituals and they're, calling them demonic and stuff because Trump said this shit and you just want to believe it because you're so fucking desperate and weak in your own, piece of shit life or whatever, right? And so, it's just the truth community is just sucks right now. Like that's a big part of it because a lot of people are posting comments and saying these things because they heard it and they just parrot the stuff that they hear because it's convenient. What's happened here is the truth community and the internet in general, social media, has killed the truth. Like you think it was better because it's more information, but now it's like a vending machine and you just go to the source that most agrees with your belief system and that becomes your truth, right? And so you just pick somebody, whoever's on the internet, whoever you want to listen to, or a group of people, a movement, whether it be Trump or whether it be Joe Rogan or whether it be, Kamala Harris and these people and, the Young Turks or whatever, whatever your belief system is, you just find a show on TV or, and mostly on social media, the internet, you find somebody who agrees with you, with your point of view and your reality, and you just pick that one as your truth, right? And then when anybody tells you otherwise, because somebody else has, picked A7 and you picked G5, right? And, someone else picks, N21 in the vending machine, and you guys go to, your relatives and you have turkey, you have Thanksgiving dinner together, you're sitting around gobbling turkey, shoving turkey into your goo hole, arguing about your realities because you each one subscribe to a different one that's catered to your particular personality type and your beliefs, right? And so truth has died. Like people's ability to actually look for the truth, actually go beyond having someone just tell them what they want to hear. Like it's over. People have lost ability for critical thinking skills. So the truth community has been a complete debacle, on top of all the other internet bullshit, right? As bad as mainstream media is, at least it was contained to a kind of shared reality. Like some people liked Republicans, some liked Democrats, but it was a very narrow bandwidth of corporate-run and government-run reality. It was far from the truth, and it was hurtful, and it was, demeaning and hurting people's personal growth. But now you have just a smorgasbord of bullshit, right? You have a smorgasbord of bullshit, and you're just picking what you want, your particular brand of bullshit. And if Trump is the brand, then you just, put away your critical thinking skills and all the rest of it. That comedian Bob Goldthwait, he had the guy used to scream a lot like he was around when Sam Kinison was around. And he had a really good comedy routine years ago, and he was like, "Oh, Entertainment Tonight is on," and he pretended to grab his head and push it, take it off his body and put it to the side. And he said, "I won't be needing this," right? He's watching, crappy Entertainment Tonight. "I won't be needing this." And you can say that, there's all this information out there, but almost all of it is just worthless. And it's just, it's just become pathetic. Anyways, good times. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paramount definitely points for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.